My mind and the opponent's Forretress have both exploded. I've always wanted to be tickled by a sunfish, but I didn't know they actually were up for that. But it's been more than half a decade since Thomas the Tank Engine chugged his last choo-choo. Farewell, Thomas. I have assembled a team of the 10 most ugly Pokemon, running them through a gauntlet of battles to refine them, to forge them in the fires of battle, and at the end, we're going to enter them into a tournament and try to win the tournament. It's my life goal, right? I've always wanted to be the very best, like no one ever was. I always thought catching them was like a test of mine, and as you'll see, training Pokemon is my heartfelt cause. Today, we are bringing the team against Sun. So there's going to be a Ninetales that's going to put up the Sun, and there's going to be a bunch of scary Paradox Pokemon that get boosted in the Sun, and we have to beat them. At the end, we'll see the battle. We'll see whether I won, whether I lost, what I learned. Join me as we dive deep into every facet of these Pokemon, their moves, their abilities, their stats, the way they interact in the battle. Don't look now, but there's an elephant in the room. You looked, didn't you? Now that you've done this, we're going to have to talk about it. It is with a heavy heart that I have to tell you, my opponent's first Pokemon is Great Tusk. You might ask, why am I so sad about it? Isn't Great Tusk a good old Pokemon? Isn't it funny? Isn't it happy? Isn't it, like, cool to see? You know, it's like Donphan, but greater. The problem is, at what cost? The climate is warming, and it's warming pretty quickly. And what scientists have gone and done is resurrected an extinct animal that was adapted for the cold? Isn't that insane? Like, okay, you've resurrected Great Tusk. Great, DNA technology's come far, I suppose. But where are you going to put it? Are you going to put it in the ice sheets of Siberia? They're melting. Are you going to put it in Antarctica? There's not going to be a snowy Antarctica. Those ice sheets are melting. Maybe we'll find more mammoths and mastodons and other extinct animals of the genus Mammut. But we shouldn't bring them back, should we? I mean, maybe we should. What if they're really tasty? How tasty does a historic creature have to be before you have a duty to revive it to be massacred en masse? I don't have your answers, but I've got many more questions, such as, what does Great Tusk do for my opponent? Well, it's a Paradox Pokemon, so we have this photosynthesis boost, which, spoilers, will be active because my opponent is using a Sun team. And it has really good stats, really nice. I mean, the special defense is unfortunate, but the physical bulk is really impressive, and the physical attack is really impressive. 115 HP, 131 defense is phenomenal, and it hits really hard. Speed is middling, but it's just fast enough that you can get a speed boost from photosynthesis if you max out speed. It's got a lot of good utility moves. It's got Rapid Spin, it's got Knock Off, it's got Stealth Rock. It's this, like, roll compression master. It can do it all. How does Great Tusk match up? Well, it's okay. It resists Sneasel's poison move, which is a bit annoying, but it is weak to grass, and I have a lot of grass type moves, so I'm not so unhappy about that. It is also weak to Psychic and Fairy, so Hatterene looks pretty good into it. We don't have much team comparison to be doing here, so we can move on. So this is my team's speed distribution. So where does Great Tusk sit? Just above Rillaboom, which is kind of annoying for me. I would like it if Rillaboom outspeed, guaranteed, because I could hit it with a wood hammer, but it's okay. It's slower than my big physical attackers, but it's faster than my slow special attackers like Hatterene and Ursaluna. I could technically max out Ursaluna's speed and outspeed their Tusk if they don't speed invest, but they will, probably all the way, because if you max it out and then put it in the Sun, that 300 gets photosynthesis boosted to 450, which outspeeds my Sneasler, unless my Sneasler has an unburden boost. So it's scary. I don't like how fast Great Tusk can become. How about offensively? Who is it hitting? Well, it has ground and fighting stab, which is not so bad for my team. I have Volbeat, which resists both. So Volbeat hard counters Great Tusk, I'm thinking. Like, is this Volbeat's weak? Maybe, maybe not, we'll see. If it was just this, if it was just these two types, I wouldn't be so worried. I've got lots of switch-ins, it hits my grass types neutrally, Mandibuzz can deal with it. But look how many coverage moves it gets, oh my god. 8 different types it can hit with a usably powerful move. That gives it way too many options. It's hard to even figure out what's good. Like, Electric doesn't look good, it only hits Mandibuzz. Ice, Rock, and Steel, I think are good. Ice hits my grasses and mandibars, Rock hits Ogerpon, Volbeat, and Mandibars, and Steel hits my fairies. Just these 3 types give Great Tusk perfect coverage against my team. All that being said, what do I think they're going to do with their Great Tusk? Well, I'm thinking something like this. Max out speed, don't invest in attack, so that you get the photosynthesis boost to speed, and then just hit hard enough, be really annoying, and be really bulky. So this hits 450 speed, which means it outspeeds everything except Sneasler with Unburden. It's got good coverage, it can rapid spin away my spikes if Ogerpon puts any down. It is obscenely bulky, so it can switch into Sneasler easily. It can switch into anything that isn't super effective. It just looks strong. There's also a choice band option. I think the choice band set is good here. You can give it the choice band and still get the photosynthesis boost, and that does silly things like one-shotting Ogerpon matchups. It only beats Ogerpon and Sneasler so handily because of the speed boost, but it does beat them. It beats Ursaluna with close combat, and it beats Go-Goat because even though Go-Goat has a type advantage, it just can't withstand Great Tusk's assault. It does have losing matchups though. It loses to my fairies, it loses to Rillaboom because Choice Band Woodhammer is so strong, and Mandibuzz kind of walls it. Volbeat kind of walls it too. So it's not an overwhelming threat. I do have answers, but I need to bring the answers. I need to make them work because it can get out of hand. Just the fact that it beats Ursaluna and Sneasler, my 2 strongest Pokemon, means I give Great Tusk overall a 7 out of 10. They shouldn't have brought it back. Science went too far. They spent so long thinking about whether they could bring back Great Tusk. They didn't consider Great Tusk's feelings about the matter. Roaring Moon is next. Varanus Paradoxon. You may remember from the other week when I faced Salamence. Oh my god, there's the fake man outside my window is terrifying. This is like that Salamence, but resurrected from the past. And in the past, Salamence was even stronger, although it had a slightly lower BST. It's another photosynthesis sweeper. Like Great Tusk, you don't need it in Sun, you can just give it a booster energy. But my opponent will have Sun, which is scary. And the stats are worrying. 139 is a lot of base attack. 119 is enough speed, and when you Dragon Dance, that makes a very, very scary dragon. It has pretty good bulk too, like 105, 101 on the special side is actually pretty good. And defense isn't the best, but it's fine. It's okay. It can do really well with the choice item. It can do really well with the booster energy and acrobatics, because you use up the booster energy, then you can acrobatics. That's a good combo. If Sun's up, the booster energy won't get consumed, because Sun will activate photosynthesis. And yeah, it likes to either just hit hard and fast with these powerful knockoffs and U-turns, or boost up with Dragon Dance and go for the win with powerful knockoffs and outrages. It does share some weaknesses with Great Tusk. Fairy and Ice look good for me. See, I don't have an Ice-type attacker, but I do have a Fairy type. In fact, I've got 2, Comfey and Hatterene. And Roaring Moon is 4 times weak to Fairy. So my Fairy-type attackers are looking good. Comfey, with that priority Draining Kiss, I think it one-shots both of these Pokemon if I give it a choice specs. So I'm like, okay, Comfey, your time is coming. Defensively, Roaring Moon is kind of nice for Great Tusk. It patches up Great Tusk's weaknesses to water and psychic. It gives the team a fire resistance. It's pretty good, but the fairy weakness is something that I will be trying to use to crack open the opponent's team. It's like the valve edge of a muscle. If you want to open the muscle, not like an arm muscle, like a bivalve, obviously you go for the crack because that's where they open. The valve of my opponent's team is looking to be fairy type attackers. It's got 1 base speed less than Sneasler, and that matters heaps. It matters so much, because they both one-shot each other if they outspeed each other. And in a neutral scenario, my Sneasler outspeeds their Roaring Moon. So they can Dragon Dance to boost their speed, but I can use Unburden to boost my speed. Or I can use a Choice Scarf. And if I have a Choice Scarf, I outspeed Dragon Dance Salamence by 3 points or something. It's really close, but I can guarantee it. If they had 1 more base speed, it would be a speed tie, and it would be a massive worry. And if they had 2 more, it would be a loss for me. Offensively, Roaring Moon Stab is absolutely garbage. I don't have any weaknesses to Dragon or Dark on my entire team. Comfey just hard counters this thing, because it's 4 times weak to Fairy, it can't hurt Fairy, but its stab doesn't go anywhere. I mean, it's still strong. Like, Knockoff and especially Outrage are still really strong, but you're not getting any super effective hits at all, so he has to rely on coverage. It has quite a lot of coverage, and it's middling. These are the types that I thought were particularly annoying. Ground, because it hits Sneasler and Lantern. Flying, because my team hates flying. It hits my grasses, it hits Sneasler, it hits Volbeat, and then Steel to hit the fairies. Salamence obviously can't fit all of these different coverage options onto its moveset, so it's going to be like 4 move slot syndrome, because it wants Dragon Dance, it wants Knockoff. If it doesn't want Dragon Dance, it wants U-Turn. Yeah, it can't fit everything, but I think Iron Head is probably its best one. I think that I am so incentivized to switch the fairy types in, that if they can just click Iron Head and deal with them, that's really good for them. For set, so I know that Outrage and Knockoff are not hitting super effectively, but they are hitting hard. I think that the EVs are so that you get maximum attack while having 1 more speed, so that you get the Photosynthesis speed boost. And then Choice Band makes your attack even higher. I don't think the Dragon Dance set is good. I think the Choice Band set is much better, and the reason is Comfey. If they click Dragon Dance, even if they kill something of mine, I can bring Comfey in and they have to switch. They have no way to not just die to Draining Kiss. Draining Kiss just always kills. So as long as I keep Comfey alive, they can't ever really get a sweep going with Roaring Moon. But they can just like one-shot Comfey with Iron Head on the switch. The Sneasler matchup is interesting. The reason that Salamence wins is because it gets the Photosynthesis boost, and so it outspeeds Sneasler. But with a Choice Scarf, as I said earlier, I outspeed by 3 points. So I'm thinking Choice Scarf Sneasler looks worth considering at the very least. Bad matchups, well, Salamence forces my Lantern and my Go-Go to Tera into Steel types to beat it. If they don't Tera, Salamence wins. It's very unclear with Ogerpon who wins, because EVs like flip it both ways in a bunch of different ways. Ogerpon needs Play Rough to win, but it does get Play Rough, and Play Rough is not that hard to slot in if it will guarantee me a winning matchup. But it doesn't, because Ogerpon gets outspeared and killed by Acrobatics and killed by Outrage, unless I like Spiky Shield or I EV really defensively. It's unclear. I think it's in their favor. It's just I have some play, and then it loses to my fairies. And interestingly, it loses to Volbeat, because I can run Dazzling Gleam on Volbeat. Weird, but it's how it works. For those reasons, I'm going to give Roaring Moon a 6 out of 10. I think it's quite similar to Great Tusk, but it's a bit worse because it doesn't have Stealth Rocks. But a 6 is fine, it's good. I have to prepare for Roaring Moon in the team builder. If I don't plan right, like I don't bring the right things, I could get 6-0'd. So it's lucky I have more time this week than last week. Did you know that the scientific name for sunfish is Mola Mola? I went on Wikipedia to look at sunfish, and I found that out. Isn't that wonderful? Mola Mola. Alomomola isn't the greatest sunfish I've ever seen, but I love sunfish, and I love Mola Mola. And of course, Alomomola does not belong to the species Mola Mola, but it does belong to the genus Mola. So Alomomola is a bulky pivot. It has Regenerator, that's its main niche, it can heal on switch, and it has this crazy high HP stat coupled with bad stats everywhere else. The physical bulk overall is still good because of the HP stat. Special defense is really bad, but the HP stat kind of makes up for that too. Speed's pretty bad, offenses are bad, but Regenerator and a lot of bulk is what Alomomola does. Thankfully it gets Scold, so it doesn't have to hit very hard, it can just fish for burns over and over. So the big thing it gets is Flip Turn. It can take a hit, take no damage, flip turn out, regenerate the damage it took, and repeat ad nauseum. It's really, really hard to get through. It also gets a couple of these moves that are really synergistic with its massive HP stat. So Mirror Coat, special version of Counter, whatever damage it takes, if it's special, is reflected back double. Because Alomomola has a really high HP stat and a really low special defense stat, any special move that hits it is going to do a lot of numerical damage, but it might not kill anyway because Alomomola has a lot of numerical health. But when you Uno reverse card that and hit the opponent with it, it can be ankle breaking because they don't have a crazy HP stat. So what is half of your health could be 3 times your opponent's, and when you double it, 6 times your opponent's. That's enough to kill your opponent, which is what you want. Also, Wish. Wish heals you or someone else for half of your HP, and you've got a lot. So if you can wish and then flip turn into an ally, which you probably can do, you can heal it for like 80% of its health. It also has Tickle, which has usage in OU apparently. It's like 1% of Alomomola's run Tickle. Which is funny, because I've always wanted to be tickled by a sunfish, but I didn't know they actually were up for that. I thought it was like fantasy I would never get to live out. But no, it's real. I'm searching for like sunfish tickling tourism. I don't know where to go to get tickled by a sunfish. Oh, if any of you work at a sunfish resort, or you live under the sea, or you're a mermaid, please comment and let me know where I can go to get my sunfish tickling in. If you don't know, that's okay though, don't worry about it. You can comment saying you don't know for engagement, but that's a bit cynical. Like engagement, I suppose it's, you know, the algorithm or something, but you don't have to engage for the sake of engagement. I never do, right? When people like, comment, and subscribe, I'm like, I'll subscribe because I like your videos, but like, do I like them enough to like be bothered clicking a like button? Like, I don't know, man. That's tall ask. And then commenting. Respect to you people who have commented on this video. I don't have that will, you know. I finish a video and I'm like, buddy, I would love to comment. You know, I'm a busy man. I've got 6 more video essays to watch, and each one of them is 7 hours long. And I've only got 8 hours left today, so I don't have 20 seconds to leave a comment. It's just time has to be cut somewhere, and I'm not cutting Philosophy Tube, so it's commenting on the previous Philosophy Tube video that has to go. Anyway, Alomomola. It is going to run a bulky item, and it's bulky. Okay, how about typing? Well, it's a water type. What does it do for my opponent's team? It looks pretty good. It doubles up on the grass weakness, but that's okay. It adds the new electric weakness, but that's well covered. In exchange, it covers Great Tusk's water weakness further. It makes my opponent really solid against fire types, which is good because they're putting the sun up. The most important thing it's doing is covering my opponent's double weakness to ice. It slots in there right beneath the lantern. Again, much like Roaring Moon, is quite nice for me. I really like being able to outspeed Alomomola because I can hit it with a super effective Volt Switch. But the thing is, maybe I actually want to underspeed because and that sounds kind of bad because, well, aren't they going to flip turn after? Like, you're going to Volt Switch, sure, to do damage, but they'll regenerate it and they'll flip turn? Yeah, but it's hard to click flip turn against Lantern because if I just click Thunderbolt and they click flip turn, I water absorb it. So they're kind of incentivized, if they're going to switch Alomomola out, to hard switch, and then I get the tempo. So on the balance, I think that I'm glad Lantern's a little bit faster. I'm probably not going to try to speed creep it. If they really want to outspeed my Lantern, I'm not going to like push it up. Offensively, how does it look? Well, it's not great. It can't hurt Lantern, really, because of water absorb, and it can't hurt my grass types. And I've got a lot of grass types. And because sun's up, water's not doing any damage anyway. They have coverage, but because of Alomomola stats, Alomomola isn't doing any damage anyway. So I predict that Alomomola is going to run a set like this. Flip turn, Wish Protect for healing, and Scold. There is something to be said for not boosting the HP and just going defense and special defense, because the return on investment for HP is kind of marginal because it's so high already, whereas special defense would make me way more specially bulky. Alomomola doesn't like that I have a Rillaboom, because if it's meant to be a physical check, Rillaboom is like its nightmare. It only beats 2 Pokemon, Sneasler and Comfey. It beats Sneasler because it's got so much physical bulk and it just clicks Scold. And it beats Comfey because Comfey's just too weak. It can't actually kill Comfey, but it can always just spam Scold until it gets burned, and it can flip turn out and it can just wish heal. Eventually, maybe Comfey wins with Carmine, but Alomomola can just generate tempo whenever it wants. And then it has a lot of neutral matchups. So it has these opponents like ursaluna and herein where it can go either way. Like Alomomola can't take them forever, but it can just keep switching in, regenerating off, being annoying, wishing up. Same with Mandibuzz. Like Mandibuzz can toxic Alomomola, and Alomomola can wish on Mandibuzz and then pivot out. It's very unclear. And then it loses to my grass type attackers. I think its main job, if it comes, is beating Sneasler. But I think my opponent has better tools for beating Sneasler. Like Great Tusk beats Sneasler. I guess Great Tusk can be worn down eventually, whereas Alomomola does stay alive. But I don't rate this as high. 5 out of 10. Just because it's a regenerator pivot. Like it It's never going to be dead weight in the game. It can always just do some forever switching, but it's not going to win them the game either. So, Rotom. Did you know that Rotom is motor backwards? You thought Ekans and Arbok being Snake and Cobra backwards was a formative discovery of my childhood. Turns out Rotom has the same gimmick, motor backwards. I didn't find that one out till much, much later. He also is a ghost, and he haunts TVs, but this is the extracted Rotom. We've taken Rotom out of whatever appliance he was haunting. We've got him on his own, which makes him worse. So here's Rotom's stats. It doesn't look too good. Electric Ghost is a good type. If it had the same stats as the other Rotoms, it would be one of the better ones. I think it's certainly better than... Actually, all of the Rotom types are kind of good. Like, Electric Flying is objectively a good type. It just doesn't synergize with Levitate. Electric Ice is really good offensively, but it's an ice type, so it doesn't have a defensive profile. This is Electric Ghost. It's pretty good, but the stats let it down. My opponent has chosen to make it a Terra Captain, which means it'll be able to turn into 2 types. Those will come up in a bit. For moves, Rotom is okay. It misses the extra coverage option that it gets from its other forms. Utility moves are pretty nice. Electric Ghost is a good typing, especially with Levitate flipping that ground weakness into a ground immunity. It has 2 weaknesses, to Ghost and Dark, but they're both covered by my opponent's other Pokemon. It gives my opponent a flying resist, which is nice because Great Tusk is weak to flying. However, it's kind of a fake resist because Rotom's so squishy. Like, it might still die to a strong Brave Bird. It doesn't double up on any weaknesses with other Pokemon on my opponent's team, so it's a strong choice defensively. It's slightly faster than Great Tusk, but slower than my Comfey. My team has this weird speed dead zone, where if you're faster than Rillaboom, you don't really need to be faster than anything else unless you can outspeed Ogerpon. But that's a 55 speed gap. Rotom can't do that, so it's going to be in this spot of probably investing enough speed just to beat Mandibuzz. How is its offensive coverage? Well, it's pretty neutral. It only has a couple of super effective hits. My team is really, really stalwart against Electric. I don't even think this thing needs to bring Electric Stab, really, except to hit Mandibuzz, which is important, but we'll get to the other options it has for hitting Mandibuzz. But Ghost is pretty good. Ghost hits Hatterene super effectively, most things neutrally. The big problem for Rotom is going to be Ursaluna, who's immune to both of its stab moves. So, without coverage, Rotom literally cannot hurt Ursaluna at all. Thankfully, for my opponent, this Rotom has Terra, and the types they've chosen are Ice and Steel. Ice in particular is a threat. Obviously, it's giving them that Bolt Beam stab combo. Notoriously, Electric and Ice are really, really hard to resist. And that turns out to be really good against my team. So you can use Ice to hit Ursaluna super effectively, and it hits both my grasses. And you can use Steel to hit my fairies. So you already hit Hatterene with a Shadow Ball, but you can also hit Comfey. The problem is you have to use Terra Blast, but I don't think that's too big of a commitment. I think that they probably do want Terra Blast because the ice coverage is so much better than anything else Rotom has. Because the only other option it has is Dark. The only other non-stab move it has is Dark Pulse, and I don't have a single Dark Beat Pokemon in my entire team. So if you're choosing between Dark Pulse and Terra Blast Ice, it's very, very clear which one is better. And they might think they can take me by surprise, and I'll switch my Ursaluna in, and they'll hit me with like a Specs Terra Blast Ice. I see it coming. I've foreseen this. I think it's very likely they will do that, because it's good even if I see it coming. Okay, so I think they're going to run something like this. Could be Leftovers, could be Choice Specs, and then just a bunch of offensive moves. Maybe they run Will-O-Wisp, if they're not running Choice Specs, to burn Sneasler, because Sneasler hates being burned, and Rillaboom too. And yeah, special attack investment. I just don't think they gain that much from speed. I think the bulk helps them a lot more. Rotom is naturally fast enough. Maybe they run enough speed to outspeed Mandibuzz, or maybe they just go full bulky. It beats my fairies, Hatterene because it's weak to Ghost, and Comfey because it just outpaces Comfey. It beats Volbeat because everything beats Volbeat. It's kind of neutral into Mandibuzz. Mandibuzz has Dark-type super effective moves, but Rotom has Electric-type super effective moves. It can Terra to not be weak to Dark anymore, but it's unclear. It's very set dependent. And then it loses to all of these Pokemon, just because its stats are too bad. Even the Terra Ice doesn't actually flip the Ursaluna. It does let it nail me on the switch, if it really wants to, and I don't see it coming. But It's not like a, oh, I suddenly win because I'm an ice type. So overall, I'm giving it a 3 out of 10. It's got some funny tricks, it's a bit annoying, but it's not like a real threat. If it had better stats, it would be. I think it's got the tools, it just doesn't have the stat. I'm not too worried about Rotom going forward. So I know that a cat of Ninetales is not the same thing as Ninetales, because Ninetales is a fox, and a cat of Ninetales is a whip. And particularly, it's a whip that gives you a damage up and a shot speed up when you get it from a Monster Room boss drop. And it's really good. I remember, back in my day, Cat of Ninetales, in before Rebirth, Cat of Ninetales was just a shot speed up, and it was like a meme item. Like, you were like, oh no, Monster is going to drop Cat of Ninetales, it does nothing for me. I wanted lunch, or I wanted meat, or I wanted wire coat hanger, or I wanted Squeezy. Maybe I wanted Squeezy. But what I didn't want was Cat of Ninetales. But in the modern era, Cat of Ninetales is great because it's also a damage upgrade. And shot speed is less buggy now, so shot speed is also kind of like a good thing. But the damage up is massive. So now, when I clear the first floor and I get Cat of Ninetales, I am overjoyed. It's about as good as you can get, especially if you're playing Maggie or one of these characters with low starting attack, because bumping up over the 2.5 damage threshold, so you 2-shot 5 health creatures instead of 3-shotting them, is wonderful, and it makes the run so much smoother. That's a cat though. There's no such thing as a Fox of Ninetales item, but if there was, it would probably be good too, especially if it was like Cat of Ninetales, but rather than the shot speed up, it like applied a burn effect or something. That would be a great item. I would love to see that. Sounds more like an item room item, but I would like that as an item room item. I mean, I like incendiary, the one that gives you incendiary tears. I like incendiary tears, so I would like the Fox of Ninetales. Do I like that my opponent has an actual fox called Ninetales? Not particularly, because it activates their other sun Pokemon. So, okay, it doesn't synergize with Rotom or Mola, but it makes Roaring Moon and Great Tusk kind of crazy. Luckily, they don't have Torkoal. If they had Torkoal, I'd be even more scared, because Torkoal is better than Ninetales. It gets rocks, it gets Rapid Spin, it's bulkier. However, it's not as clear-cut as it is in OU, because Baton Pass is legal in this format, as long as you don't have a boosting move. So they have a weather setter that can pivot, and that's a big deal. It might be the case that Ninetales is kind of as good as Torkoal, just because of Baton Pass. As for stats, it's fine, but not great. 100 speed is passable. It's kind of the benchmark where if you're 101, you're happy, but there's a lot of 100 speed Pokemon. You're not outspeeding anything that's actually fast. You're speed tying with my Comfey. 100 special defense is fine, but it means that your physical bulk and your attacking stats are weak. So, yeah, you're not doing that much damage. You're not really tanky enough, and you're not quite fast enough. But you're a weather setter. Your job is to have drought, and make the sun go up, and then get your sun sweepers in. So Ninetales is a mono fire type. It's certainly more good than bad for my opponent's team. It gives them a fairy resistance, which is really helpful because their main 2 threats are weak to fairy. It doesn't give them any major weakness flaws, and so as I said, it speed ties Comfey with 100 base speed, which means that it's pretty fast. They probably want to EV it to outspeed Rillaboom, so it can hit me with a fire type move, and I can't hit it with a ground type move. But beyond that, they don't really need to worry. I think they can go modest, or bold or something. I don't think they need to go timid. It can't deal with my fast things. It's slower, which is good for me, because it does get Psyshock, which would kill Sneasler, but it doesn't matter because Sneasler outspeeds and kills it with close combat. Offensively, it's just a fire type, but fire's pretty good against my team. Beats 3 of my Pokemon, only resisted by Lantern, and it has a nice array of coverage. It's got a lot of different coverage moves it can take. The thing is, though, they don't match up very well against my team. Like, none of these are types that I'm particularly worried about. You can see Grass and Ground beat 2 of my Pokemon, but I've got so many resistances to those types. So, my opponent can take coverage moves to hit like 1 of my Pokemon. I think Grass and Ground are its best coverage options, because I hit 2 Pokemon. For the number of coverage options it has, none of them are particularly amazing. I think they'll use a set something like this. Flamethrower is really nice, and Solar Beam shores up the Lantern problem. and hits ursaluna as well for quite a lot of damage. Baton Pass gives them momentum, which is really important. Will-O-Wisp, if they can manage to hit Rillaboom or Sneasler with it, it's potentially game-winning because it shuts those Pokemon down so incredibly. I'll try not to let that happen. And as for EVs, I believe that's enough speed to outspeed Rillaboom. It has favourable matchups. I mean, it resists Grass and it resists Fairy. And half of my team is either Grass or Fairy. So, yay for Ninetales. Well, boo from my perspective, but yay from Ninetales' perspective. And it beats Volbeat too, but, you know, it's Volbeat. It has losing matchups, though, against Ursaluna and Sneasler, as well as my defensive Pokemon. So, middling, right? It certainly has problems, and if they bring Ninetales in, I can pretty much always just switch in Lantern. Lantern with an Assault Vest takes like 30% from a Solar Beam. So, oh no, right? I don't care. I'll do my Lantern thing. But it's no joke on its own merits. And for the Sun, I'm giving it an 8 out of 10, because Roaring Moon and Great Tusk go so crazy in the Sun. And so does my opponent's next threat, Walking Wake. He is a Parasaurolophus. Now, I wasn't aware that the Parasaurolophuses evolved into quadrupedal, like, cat-dog things, like Suicune, but they did, and Pokemon Scarlet Violet have confirmed it. I like Parasaurolophuses. They're a really good dinosaur. They are not my favourite dinosaur, but they're really hard not to love. They can make sounds with their funny horns that go over their head. If you find a skull in the wild, the way that you can tell that it's a dinosaur, you look for, and I believe this is right, but fact-check me, the supraorbital fenestra. It's a hole in the side of the skull that dinosaurs have that mammalian fossils don't have. So birds have it, fenestra. We, me and you, mammals, we have one less hole in the side of our skull than a bird does because of a really early divergence between the synapsids and the diaps. The synapsids and the diapsids diverged in the early Triassic, or just before the early Triassic, maybe in the Permian, late Permian, early Triassic. And the synapsids, which evolved into us, have no supraorbital fenestra. I fact-checked and I was wrong. It's not the supraorbital fenestra, it's the antorbital fenestra. So I believe you and I, have a supraorbital fenestra. What we don't have is an antorbital fenestra. The antorbital fenestra is the hole in the skull that the diapsids have. So modern dinosaurs, the birds, and the other extinct birds, the T-Rex and stuff. The extinct birds and then the modern birds have the extinct dinosaurs and the modern dinosaurs have the antorbital fenestra. And the Parasaurolophus is no exception. I believe they're kind of hadrosaur adjacent, so I think they're saurischians and not ornithischians, but I might have to be fact-checked on that too. Anyway, yeah, so the diapsids and the synapsids diverge, we inherit the synapsid skull, the birds and the Pachycephalosauruses and the Parasaurolophuses inherit the diapsid skull with the antorbital fenestra. What can Walking Wake do with its antorbital fenestra? Well, quite a lot. The stats are good. The stats are good across the board. 590 BST, so very, very high. Respectable mixed bulk, 99, 91, 83. Decent speed, and good special attack. And crucially, the speed and special attack are such that you can choose which one gets the photosynthesis boost based on EVs. So, okay, maybe 109 speed isn't that impressive, but in the Sun, 109 speed boosted by photosynthesis is very impressive. I mean, it makes it outspeed my Sneasler. So don't be lulled into a false sense of security by that 109 speed stat. No, Walking Wake is fast. And it doesn't have that much coverage, but Flamethrower plus stab moves is basically enough. The only other move it gets is Hurricane, but that's more for rain, because in Sun, Hurricane's accuracy is 50%, so they won't be using that. But they can run Water Move, Dragon Move, Flamethrower, and then Flip Turn or Knockoff, and it's good. I would say that the typing is more detrimental than beneficial to their team. It adds a fourth Steel Resist, sure, but they don't need to worry about Steel. They don't have a Steel weakness. Everything on the team resists Steel. It shores up their Water weakness, I guess, but they didn't really need that much help with that. Alomomola is such a good water check, and they've got the sun up to halve water damage anyway. In exchange, they gain a weakness to Dragon, which is the only type they don't have a resistance to, and a third weakness to Fairy, which means all three of their main attackers are weak to Fairy, which is a hole I can exploit. So it slots in at 1 less base speed than Ogerpon. And much like Sneasel being 1 speed faster than Roaring Moon, this is really nice for me. It means that they basically have to go for the speed boosting nature, because if they go modest, then my Ogerpon will just outspeed them, because they'll be boosted special attack by the sun, and kill them with Woodhammer. I'm happy with this. The fact that they can boost up is worrying, but so can Sneasler, and Sneasler doubles. Sneasler's not a pitiful 1.5 times like Walking Wake and Roaring Moon. It's actually kind of pathetic, but also not bad. It's pathetic because I only have one weakness to its stab move, which is Ursaluna. Not bad because it hits my whole team neutrally. It has, as I say, just Flamethrower as a viable coverage option, but Flamethrower is nice, it lets it hit the grass types. You're probably running this with choice picks, maybe you do Life Orb. Sniping Go-Go and Rillaboom and Volbeat isn't that important in the grand scheme of things, but it's nice, and you have move slots to spare with Walking Wake. So I think they're running a set something like this. Draco Meteor, Hydro Steam, Flamethrower, basically for sure, and then knock off or Flip Turn, based on their preference. The matchups look scary. It has 7 of 10 winning matchups, and they're against my strongest Pokemon, Sneasler and Rillaboom. It beats the grass types, even though it's a water type, because Draco Meteor is so strong, and it's just bulky enough. And it even beats Hatterene. Hatterene, it turns out, even though it's a fairy type, can't take a Hydro Steam, it's just too strong. So, yeah, it gets hit, it takes one, it hits back, but it doesn't do enough damage, and then the second Hydro Steam kills Hatterene. Comfey is kind of either or. Comfey can boost up, it can kill with Draining Kiss, but Walking Wake can fight through it, but it can't outspeed. It depends on the set, depends how much special defense we each invest in. I would say it's fairly neutral in terms of who's favored. And then the losing matchups are just Ogerpon and Lantern. Ogerpon can just barely take a Draco Meteor, and just barely kill in return with Woodhammer, but it's pretty tight. So I'm really counting on Lantern here. I think I have to bring Lantern, and I probably have to bring Water Absorb Lantern to block flip turns from this thing in Alomomola. But I wanted to bring Lantern anyway, because it's good against other Pokemon in their team too. But it's my only really reliable answer to Walking Wake, so I think I have to bring it. Now, it's pretty good into Walking Wake, with an Assault Vest and a lot of special defense investment. It does pretty much everything I want out of a fish. So, overall, I give Walking Wake a 9 out of 10. I think it is really scary. I have answers, but Walking Wake, more than anything except for one Pokemon we'll talk about later, really forces my hand. There are sets I have to run just because if I don't, I lose to Walking Wake. So it's very, very constraining on me in the team builder. I have to bring Lantern, because if I don't, I think I just lose to this thing. I have to put special defense EVs into random Pokemon to take a hit so that I don't lose to Walking Wake. I have to put a lot of speed into Ogerpon just so that I have the option to outspeed it if it's outside of Sun or they're in a special attacking set. So it's very constraining, but I can manage it. It's not a 10 out of 10, but it is very scary. Next, Lilligant-Hisui. So it's a lily, it's a flower, and it's the Hisuian form, which means it has the power of having scythes for legs, I guess? I don't know much about Lilligant-Hisui. I never played Legends Arceus. I know that it's a fighting type, because I can see the symbol. I know that it's from Hisui, because it says Hisui there. And I know that it's a lily, because it belongs to the genus Lilium, which is the lilies. And also there's a big picture of a lily in the background. And also, its name is Lilligant. So, with those 3 clues, I can deduce it's a lily. Its 105 offenses are just enough, maybe, depending on its move pool. Defenses are not great, but it'll maybe take a hit. The abilities are good, though, or at least 2 of them are. Chlorophyll, obviously, is what my opponent will probably use. Double speed in Sun. Suddenly 105 speed becomes way more than 105 speed. Hustle's also strong. Okay, it's really frustrating because you're adding an RNG factor into every single button you click. It's why Dimanitan in Nuzlocke is so annoying sometimes. Sorry, Dimanitan, you're really good. It's just whenever I get a Dire marker and it has Hustle, I miss those 20% of attacks at the worst times. But I won't judge Lilligant for Dire marker's crimes. Its moveset is cool. Obviously, the shining jewel of its moveset is Victory Dance, its signature move, which is a physical quiver dance, which is really, really good. They'll do a dance, and then they'll do a ton of damage, and that's a worry, because I don't have any dances. I can make my Ogerpon dance, and Rillaboom can technically dance too, but they can't dance like Lilligant can dance. They have some moves, but they weren't born and raised to be a dancer. Typing-wise, Lilligant-Hisui is good with the caveat that it gives them another fairy weakness, which I'm very happy about. Here's 4 crazy Sunsweepers, all of them weak to fairy. Aside from that, it gives them some nice resistances. Quadruple weakness to flying is kind of annoying, but not too crippling for their team, but the fairy weakness is brutal for them. Speed. Just under Walking Wake. It's fast, but it's slower than Ogerpon. I'm really glad it's slower than Ogerpon. It means that out of Sun, I can kill it with Ivy Cudgel. It being slower than Sneasler is also incredibly relevant, because if it has a double speed from Chlorophyll boost, and my Sneasler has a double speed from Unburden boost, I win, and click Diaclaw. Now, if they Victory Dance with Chlorophyll, then they outspeed my Unburdened Sneasler. But that's just going crazy, right? We're getting into like 1,000 speed at that point with the doubling. It beats Ursaluna. We can say that it beats Ursaluna. It beats Lantern too. It can't hurt Sneasler or Volbeat. And Volbeat is kind of showing up again, because it's a fighting type, as something that walls my opponent's physical attackers. So if there's any time to use Volbeat, I mean, Bug is looking quite good defensively here. Sneasler's good defensively here too, but Sneasler doesn't really have the bulk to make it work. I do have, thankfully, a lot of Grass and Fairy resists, so although it hits these Pokemon neutrally, it has to win the prediction game to do that. If it goes for a Grass-type move and I switch in Mandibuzz, Ogerpon, Gogart, or Rillaboom, it can take it. And if I switch in one of my Fairy types and it goes for a Fighting-type move, the reverse is true. For coverage, it only has 3 types, but oh dear god, those are the 3 types that my team is worst against. I hate poison types, I hate ice, and I hate flying. That looks scary, right? This picture, these coverage moves, tell a completely different tale to the main stab. They're all good. Between them, they hit my whole team. Flying alone hits Volbeat and Sneasler. The catch with flying, though, is that it's acrobatics. So if they want to use it, they have to use a consumable item, like my Sneasler has to do, or just go itemless. And either way, there's a cost to it. Now, maybe they go Grassy Seed, right? That's what I'm doing. That's how I use my consumable items. They could go Grassy Seed and get the defense boost, and then use acrobatics. That's a bit scary. Maybe I shouldn't give them terrain. But, I mean, Poison. Poison Jab / Triple Axle are great coverage options for it. I'm more scared of those than I am of Solar Blade in close combat. Worrisome. For a set, I do something like this. I think that you don't really need to Victory Dance. You get all the kills you need just by going Life Orb and 4 attacks in the sun with great coverage. I think that Poison Jab and Ice Spinner are so good, you don't really want to drop either. You can just max out speed and attack, hit really hard, really fast, and have a good time. You beat these guys, you beat all my grass types because of the poison and ice coverage. You beat Lantern because its physical defense is bad, and you're really super effective against Ursaluna. You lose to these other Pokemon, but they need to really tick for it. So Comfey and Hatterene can win with the Fairy-type moves, but they need to be, like, really defense-invested. What they do is they take a Solar Blade, and then they heal back the damage they took with Draining Kiss. But if I don't invest in defense, they just die to the Solar Blade. So I can EV them to win, or at least kind of make the matchup neutral, but only barely, and if my opponent gets any chip on them, it flips back to them. So they're losing matchups overall. Sneasler is winning with Jolly plus speed and Unburden activated, but if I don't have Unburden activated, I lose. And then Mandibuzz gets flying moves, but they're all kind of bad. Brave Bird is the strongest, but the recoil and the really bad attack stat. And unfortunately for Volbeat, although it has this cool niche of switching into Lilligant stabs and then encoring it into Victory Dance, it just dies to like Poison Jab or Triple Axle. So it doesn't really do that which was foretold. Overall, I'm giving Lilligant an 8 out of 10, and it's mainly for the coverage. It's mainly for being able to click Poison Jab over and over again, and I can't really answer it. I'm going to Tera Lantern into a Steel type? No, if I Tera Steel, they just die to close combat anyway. I don't have a good answer to Poison types, and that continues to be my Achilles heel. Next up is Forretress. Forretress is a bagworm, and I have a bagworm right here for show and tell. I found this the other week. Is that Pod? Oh, Pod! Hi, come in. Yeah, I'm just keeping this close so it doesn't get cold. Yeah. Hi. Hi. I know. Pod's come in and ruined my show and tell. But look, here he is. He's in a bag. Now, I found this on the ground a few weeks ago, and it hasn't hatched. So I'm pretty sure that whatever's inside here is not alive. If it was, it should have finished gestating and opened up into a nice moth. I think this is just a failed bag. But if it were to hatch, what would pop out would be a bug steel orb called Forretress. Not a moth, like you might expect. That would be what Burmy is. I guess Forretress... In fact, is Forretress even a bag moth? Isn't it a pine cone? Maybe I'm thinking of Burmy. Have I had this all wrong? I've shown a Burmy at a Forretress show. I don't know, but I feel like Pineco is called the bagworm Pokemon, isn't it? No, I'm not going crazy. Pineco's Pokedex description is the bagworm Pokemon, so it is a bagworm. Burmy's a bagworm too, and Burmy looks more like a bagworm, but Pineco's a bagworm. Bagworm representation is very important. Anyway, they're worms, well, they're caterpillars, and they live in bags, and then when they're done in their bag, they become a moth, or they become a wormadam, which has 3 types based on the terrain. This guy I found on the road, so if it's a female, it will hatch into a trash cloak wormadam, and if it's a male, it'll become a mothim, or a Forretress, I suppose. What does Forretress do to my opponent's team? Well, here's its stats. Obviously crazy defense, and mediocre everything else. But the physical bulk is nothing to sneeze at, and it doesn't need speed, it doesn't really need damage. Its attack stat's not actually too bad. 90 is not good, but workable. It's fine for a defensive Pokemon. It has 2 abilities which are okay. Overcoat, same as my Mandibuzz, it makes it immune to Spore, and it makes it immune to Sandstorm damage, but it was already immune to Sandstorm damage, so that doesn't help. And Sturdy makes it survive a hit, which is nice against, say, a special Fire-type move, or really any Fire-type move. On Forretress's side, the moves it gets are lots of entry hazards and Rapid Spin, so it is playing the hazard game and playing it well. It gets pivoting with Volt Switch, and it gets Body Press to do big damage off that defense stat. Now, it can't Tera, in this case, into fighting, and Body Press isn't that high power, but Stab Body Press is still pretty good, and Gyro Ball is pretty strong because Forretress is really slow. Explosion won't do that much damage. Rest in peace, early gens, Explosion, defense halving mechanic fairly well, but it does generate momentum for Forretress, so it's okay. Typing-wise, Forretress has a really cool type in that it has 9 resistances and 1 weakness to fire. My opponent doesn't mind the fire weakness. Sure, they're boosting fire-type damage, but it doesn't really matter. Forretress was dying to fire anyway. Boosting it from 700% of Forretress's health to 1100 is not really a deal-breaker. And in exchange, they get a whole bunch of resistances to a whole bunch of things, including Dragon, which was a type that otherwise my opponent couldn't deal with. So, yeah, I mean, it's nice defensively. It's a Bug Steel type. Speed. There it is, down there with Hatterene. Interestingly, the Forretress versus Hatterene speed creep war is looking to be the most dynamic, because Forretress can one-shot Hatterene with Heavy Slam, I think, or come close, and Hatterene can one-shot Forretress with Mystical Fire, and Hatterene kind of wants to switch in on Forretress if it's collecting spikes, and Forretress kind of wants to switch in on Hatterene because it resists both of Hatterene's stab moves. So whichever one outspeeds can kill the other one. So maybe there's some merit in like speed investing my Hatterene, but maybe there isn't, because maybe they want to go minus speed, because Forretress sometimes goes minus speed, but I think in their case they should at least stay neutral to try to outspeed Hatterene. They don't lose that much. They don't lose that much Gyro Ball damage, and in exchange... Oh wait. Does that even work with Gyro Ball? Is it... Because Electro Ball doesn't work like that, it's based on base speed, so maybe Gyro Ball's the same. You can't like change your speed. I don't know. I don't know how Gyro Ball works, and maybe I'll pay for that. Maybe it'll be... I'll need another Hubris triangle in the top corner. Offensively, well, given that Bug and Steel are not renowned for being good offensive types, it's actually decent to good, because I've got Grass and Fairy types, and Steel beats. Fairy and Bug beats Grass. In practice, though, it's kind of more likely to be clicking Body Press than anything else, because of its really high defense stat. And Body Press is fine. I mean, it hits Ursaluna super effectively. Yeah, the coverage options are obviously very, very diverse, but they are all going towards a Pokemon that's not going to be doing that much damage. Anyway, still it's interesting that it gets all these weird moves. So, my set prediction for Forretress is something like this. We run either Spikes or Stealth Rock for a hazard, Body Press for actually good damage from the high defense stat, and then Heavy Slam or Gyro Ball. Heavy Slam is better for Hatterene, Gyro Ball is better for everything else, but I kind of think you actually really want to hit Hatterene with Heavy Slam. And Gyro Ball doesn't do much to Hatterene because Hatterene's so slow. And then Volt Switch to pivot. You can also run Explosion instead of Volt Switch to generate momentum, but probably Volt Switch. Item, Rocky Helmet. It's switching into my physical attackers. It's not going to take a special hit very well, but it can take Sneasler, or Rillaboom, or Ogerpon forever. Asterisk. Ogerpon has Ivy Cudgel, so it can't actually take Ogerpon. And then Sturdy, because Overcoat doesn't do anything at all against my team, I don't think. I don't have any powder moves I want to use, I don't have Sandstorm, but it doesn't matter. So Sturdy's the best. Matchups, well, it's the physical attackers and Comfey. It also beats Mandibuzz because it's immune to Toxic, so Mandibuzz just can't hurt it at all. Comfey doesn't have a single special move in all of its move set that can hit Forretress neutrally, so it just loses. And it's light, and Forretress is heavy, so Heavy Slam annihilates it. And it's fast, and Forretress is slow, so Gyro Ball annihilates it. And then Sneasler and Rillaboom are just their physical attackers, they don't have super effective moves. Even Fire Punch from Sneasler isn't doing enough because of how bulky Forretress is. The flip side is the losing matchups. So this is Ogerpon for the Fire-type damage, and then my special attackers. Go-Goat's funny. Go-Goat is a mixed attacker, weirdly, and it's Surf. It's Surf that lets it beat Forretress. You just Terra Water, and you Surf, and it's hitting on the much weaker special defense side, and you win. Ursaluna annihilates Forretress. Forretress can kind of take a Blood Moon, because it resists it, but not really. But Earth Power just destroys it. You can take it one with Sturdy, but that's it. And then Hatterene is really complicated, as I said, with the Speed Wars. Overall, I'm giving Forretress a 6 out of 10, mostly for its hazard game, because it has a good matchup, or at least an okay matchup into Hatterene, and because it hard counters Rillaboom and it checks Sneasler. But it definitely has problems. My special attackers don't struggle to overcome it. I just have to be careful not to end up like last week, where I lost to Galarian Weezing, because it was a physical wall and I let all of my special attackers die. If I let all my special attackers die, I lose to Forretress. So I have to not be that silly again. Next up is Carkol. We're coming to the end. This is the penultimate Pokemon. And it's Thomas, the Tank Engine. And I know that a lot of my true fans, my true believers who've been here since the good old days, since 2018, will be dying to know, how's Thomas going? I mean, he fell off that bridge. He became an ethical machine. He solved the trolley problem. He ran over those workers, and then he fell off the bridge because the workers he'd killed had been doing critical infrastructure repairs. And how's he going now? Well, there's good news and there's bad news. The good news is Thomas isn't dead. The bad news is he's been in a coma for 6 years, and the doctors are not sure if he's ever going to wake up. They continue to feed coal into his train heart to keep the fire burning, but it's been more than half a decade since Thomas the Tank Engine chugged his last choo-choo. Farewell, Thomas. May you wake up one day to ethics intact. All we can do for Thomas now is hope that the ethical retarters live up to his name, right? He was an ethical machine. These guys are ethical retarters. In many ways, the ethical rats are fighting the fight that Thomas would have believed in. I like to think that he may be gone, but I'm doing what he would have wanted. So if we win this week, Thomas, it was for you, darling. Carkol has terrible stats. It's a middle stage Pokemon, but it can run a Violite, which will make its defenses a little bit usable. It has a bunch of moves, but it's so weak because it's a middle stage Pokemon that I don't know if they really matter, but it gets hazards and rapid spins, so it's kind of an alternative to Forretress. It gets Will-O-Wisp to be annoying. It can do weird stuff with Steam Body and Body Press, Iron Defense things. It's weird, but it's a middle stage, so I won't dwell on it too much. Defensively, it's okay. It's weirdly okay because Fire Rock is bad, but Fire Rock looks better on paper, and it doesn't look that great on paper, but it looks better on paper than it actually is because two of those weaknesses are quadruple, and water and ground are so common. But it's not the worst. It gives them some nice resistances, and they can Tera it. They've chosen it as a Tera Captain, so they can get out of the quadruple weakness problem. As a side note, so this layout, you can see I've cut all the types that Carkol doesn't interact with, so there's no grass on here because Carkol's neutral to grass. So I'm only showing the parts of the type chart that are changing with Carkol. Do you like it, or do you hate it? I can see pros and cons. Pros are, it narrows what you're looking at to the relevant information. It gets rid of the clutter. Cons are, maybe it makes it harder to get an idea of what's really going on, like we're kind of withholding information from ourselves. I don't know. If any of you comment, and by you I mean the ghosts, because I am proud to announce that I actually have a weirdly loyal fan base of ghosts. I have 200 views on my last video, which is more than my Thomas the Tank Engine video. That 8-mode video is now my greatest video I've ever made, and I thought that my life had peaked with the Thomas the Tank Engine one. So having it surpassed in such a beautiful way is just amazing. But if you're a ghost, I know your hands will phase through the keyboard. Like, I know you're incorporeal. I don't expect you to comment. You don't have to. It's all good. I understand that we all have our struggles, so it's okay. But if there are any non-ghosts watching, like the 30 of you that aren't ghosts, if you want to comment and just say, do you like option A, which is like this, where you can see every type, or do you like option B, like this, where you can only see the types that are relevant to the defending Pokemon? Comment below and let me know. Or, if you have a better idea, option C is write your own option. Option D, I guess, is I'm agnostic on the issue. I don't think that there's an obviously superior option. Option E is, can you please define best, and can you define option, because there's a lot of disclarity in your terminology, and the semantic problem is ruining my ability to comprehend the question. Those are all valid, I suppose, but I prefer A or B because I don't really know what to do if you say E. Option F is I'm a ghost, I'm incorporeal, I don't have hands, so I have to get Siri to write this, but I am a ghost, so it's hard to communicate with Siri, so I can only write this one message, which is a disclaimer that I am a ghost. I get it, guys. If you're ghosts, just you watching is enough. I'm so glad to be haunted by such fine spectres as yourselves. Speed tiers. Where is Carkol? It's down the bottom. Doesn't matter, not really, but it's kind of relevant that Ursaluna outspeeds it by a little bit, because Earth Power is so good against Carkol. but who really cares? It's Carkol. Offensively, Fire and Rock is great. It's a known great combo. Hisui and Arcanine is great with it. The problem with the type is defensive. Offensively, it's amazing. And it's amazing against my team. 5 super effective hits, 5 neutral hits. Nothing to complain about. It has interesting stab. The water type is Scald, which they probably won't use because it's ruined by the sun. But it's interesting that it gets it. And then Body Press and Iron Head / Flash Cannon. It also has Tera. And the Tera types are Grass and Ghost. Ghost is for spin blocking, I assume, because it's a hazard guy and it wants to stop the opponent rapid spinning on it. I have a defogger, though I have Mandibuzz, I don't have rapid spin, so it doesn't matter. Grass nullifies both of its quadruple weaknesses, so Grass resists water and Grass resists ground, so you can terrestrialize Grass and then get by a water move and activate Steam Engine, but not take a bunch of damage because you resist it. Grass is pretty good. I think Grass is better than Ghost against my team. Coverage-wise, well, Grass Tera Blast is actually quite nice to hit Lantern and ursaluna. You can run Steel to hit the fairies, but you're a Carkol, you're really weak, you probably won't be doing meaningful damage. I think you want to stick with Stab and maybe Body Press. But Tera Grass looks pretty nice against my team. For set, well, I was fiddling around and I thought this set was actually really funny. It looks kind of terrible, right? But what you do is you invest enough into speed that you outspeed everything because it quadruples, right? So with 204 and Jolly investment, when you're 204 Jolly in speed, you outspeed my Unburdened Snoozler if you can proc Steam Engine. So the goal of this set is to switch in, click Iron Defense, bait me into coming in, I click a water move on you with Lantern, you Tera, so you don't die to it, and then you Iron Defense again, and now you're the fastest thing on the battlefield, and you have a really strong Body Press, and you just try to sweep me with Body Press. It has problems, right? You need Iron Head to get through the fairies, but you're not that strong, so it's going to take you a while to get through the fairies. And Sneasler is still a problem, you're weak to Diaclaw if you Tera. I don't think it's good, but it is funny, and I think there's some potential to it. Yeah, I like it. A Violite does make you pretty bulky, but without a way to heal, like you're going to die sooner or later. I guess you run it with Mola, and you wish to it. It's fine. I think it's an okay Pokemon. Matchups are not great for it. It beats ursaluna if it tears Grass on the Earth Power. It loses to a bunch of stuff. I give it a 4 out of 10. I'm more scared of it than Rotom. I think that, mostly because it sets up hazards, and I don't like hazards. And it kind of matches up well into Hatterene, because it resists Fairy. But that's mostly because I think Rotom's pretty bad, and I think this is also pretty bad, but a bit less bad. And I'm kind of scared of that crazy speed-boosting Steam Engine 9 defense thing. Maybe it's just a phantom spectre that haunts me, much like you viewers, you ghostly viewers, that haunts me in my dreams. Now, unfortunately for us, we were doing so well, it was looking great, we were all in the clear, they didn't have a poison type, happy days, and then along came the pheasant. Fezandipiti is a problem. It's a problem for 2 reasons. The first reason is it's a poison type, and I hate poison types, and they're the bane of my existence, and I can't deal with them. The second problem is that Ogerpon has a grudge to settle with Fezandipiti, because Fezandipiti is the one who ambiguously ruined Ogerpon's life and stole its dreams. I can't really remember what happened. I just know that Ogerpon and Fezandipiti have beef. So there's a chance if I bring Ogerpon and they bring Fezandipiti, that Ogerpon's going to go wild. You know how when you trade Pokemon with someone and they stop obeying you because you don't have enough gym badges? It might be like that. I'll tell Ogerpon to use Ivy Cudgel, and it'll be like, nah, I think Encore's better. And I'm like, buddy, he clicked Gunk Shot last turn. Encore's not better. And he's like, shut up, you jerk. You can't tell me what to do, Dad. I control my own destiny. And then he Encores a Fezandipiti and dies to Gunk Shot. Fezandipiti's stats are really weird. Really good special defense, 99 base speed, so not quite at the base 100, and then mediocre everything else. It's really unfortunate, actually, for Fezandipiti, because it's so close to being, good, but it just ends up being a bit strange. Yeah, I never know how to EV it. The special defense kind of is not enough. You kind of wish it had that an attack, or special attack, or speed, or HP, but no, it's special defense. So you just have to cope with it. And yeah, it has Toxic Chain, which is a good ability, and it can proc it with Beat Up. Beat Up basically guarantees a Toxic. It's very, very unlikely that you don't get a Toxic. It procs on everything, right? It procs on your special moves, unlike Poison Touch, and it does Toxic Poison. It's nice. Technician's also good, but Fezandipiti doesn't really have the moveset for it. There is a case to be made for Aerial Ace and Double Kick with Technician. It gets both those moves, they become 90 base power. Its attack stat is its better stat. So yeah, I probably should respect Technician Aerial Ace a bit, given my preponderance to be weak to flying. Moveset, well, it gets Play Rough, it gets Gunk Shot, which is very, very strong, and then it gets special equivalents. So it also gets Dazzling Gleam, and it gets Poison Jab. But the physical equivalents are stronger. It has some nice utility moves, Roost, Taunt, Calm Mind, it can pivot with U-Turn. It's very versatile. It's kind of a jack of all trades. It's just hard to tell whether that makes it good. Like, it does a lot of things, but I don't know that it does any of them well enough. Defensively, what does it do? Well, it's the first steel weakness, but that's fine. They have 5 resistances. It does leave them a bit vulnerable to ground and psychic, but I can't really capitalize on it. I mean, it makes Hatterene look quite promising against their team. Those psychic moves hitting Tusk and Lilligant was already good. Hitting Fezandipiti as well is great. And then ground looks great as well. Both of their ground switches are pretty frail. But, spoilers, I'm bringing ursaluna. Like, I'm clicking ground moves. So, Fezandipiti may just be killed by the byproduct of being weak to ursaluna. That's the hope, anyway. Speed-wise, well, you can see where it's going to go. Dead in the middle. 1 speed less than Comfey, but Comfey can't hurt it. So, who cares if it gets undersped by Comfey? Comfey can't do anything. It's not fast enough to beat Ogerpon, but I think it's kind of good with the Choice Scarf. This looks like a scary Scarf Pokemon. It has U-Turn, so it can pivot with the speed, and Poison Touch means it can just click random moves, and even if you do a resisted hit, maybe it poisons. I think the Scarf set's pretty good. Outspeeding Rillaboom is also really nice for it. If they push their speed to 296, then they can just Gunk Shot my Rillaboom. Grassy Glide isn't going to kill them. I think usually its speed tier is kind of bad, but against my team it's kind of nice. It's not competing with those top dogs, and it's solely beating all the middle of the road. So, we can have a look at the offensive coverage, and what we'll find is that it's good. It's really good. We knew it was going to be good because it's a poison type, but it's really good. It hits more than half of my team super effectively, and the rest neutrally. It's really good. It's really terrifying. I'm scared of this bird. I'm going to need to really prepare for it, because I think it's really, really dangerous. The coverage is also quite nice, particularly flying. I think that either Toxic Chain Brave Bird or Technician Aerial Ace are going to be problems for me if my opponent chooses to go with them. I'm hoping they go for a special set, because the special options are much worse. Air Slash kind of sucks, and Hurricane always misses, especially in Sun. So the physical set looks much stronger. We'll see what they choose to do. I'm predicting a set something like this. So I haven't predicted they run a flying move. Although it's good, like it hits Sneasler and Volbeat, you don't really need it. You can just run Gunk Shot, plus Play Rough to hit Mandibuzz, and then you can Roost Up, and you can U-Turn. I was considering Choice Scarf. Choice Scarf is also really good. This is a more bulky set, but this set is just so annoying. The Gunk Shots KO my grass types. They have to switch out of Sneasler's Diaclaw, but they can do chunks to it, and eventually they win. Yeah, I think this set is a major problem for my team. The matchups, it beats all but 2 of my Pokemon. It beats all my grass types, all my fairies, it beats Lantern. If I Tera Steel, it doesn't beat Lantern unless it runs Heat Wave, but Heat Wave's not that great, so maybe it won't. But if I Tera Steel, then I'm weak to Great Tusk and Hisui and Lilligant, so even if it forces me to Tera and then loses, it still kind of wins, because they can now kill my Lantern much easier with their fighting types. Beats Mandibuzz because it poisons it. The only things it doesn't beat are Sneasler and ursaluna. Now, granted, it does lose quite badly to Sneasler and ursaluna. Ursaluna is bulky, especially on the physical side, and Ground-type stab is really strong against Fezandipiti. Pod. Meow, meow, meow. Yeah, yeah. I know I'm all the way over here. It's not really fair, is it? Because you're down there. Poor Pod. I'm all the way over here and he's down on the mat. And I'm not patting him because I'm trying to do a monologue. Where was I in my monologue? Ah, yes. Ursaluna beats Fezandipiti and Sneasler beats Fezandipiti. Apart from that, it looks bad. 9 out of 10. Only not 10 out of 10 because Ursaluna and Sneasler both deal with it. Funnily enough, if it wasn't a fairy type, I think it would be even better because then it would wall Sneasler, but the fairy type makes it neutral to Dire Claw, so Sneasler can break through it. That's it. We're done with part 2. This is the longest segment of the video. I like to go in depth. They have a lot of Pokemon. I have a lot to say. I have a lot of rambles to go on. Thank you for sticking with me. So let's recap. How does the opponent's team compare amongst itself? Well, I think Rotom's the worst. Carkol, I'm actually rating higher than Rotom. I think Violite is good. I think the hazards are good. It's still not great though. Mola, slightly higher again. It's a really good Pokemon, and the Wish support is really nice for their team. Water types just don't match up well against me. In 6, we have Forretress and Roaring Moon. Forretress because I think it's their best hazard setter if they want to go for an offensive Great Tusk, which I think they do because offensive Great Tusk is so strong. But if they run Choice Band Great Tusk, they have to give up Stealth Rocks, and they still want Stealth Rocks. I think Forretress is a good compromise. It also shuts down Sneasler really well. It has its problems. I mean, it's slow, it's weak, it's predictable, it lets me get momentum. It's not all sunlight and moonlight and starlight, but it is a kind of artificial light that you might find from a camphor lamp. Roaring Moon is 6 because although it's a crazy Pokemon, it dies in one hit to Comfey's Priority Draining Kiss. Great Tusk is in 7. It also dies in one hit to Comfey's Priority Draining Kiss, but not if you invest it in special defense. And hi Pod. Hi there. You want attention? You want attention? No. The reason Great Tusk is rated higher than Salamence is because it has much better coverage against my team, and it only has a double fairy weakness. But Fighting Ground is just way scarier than Dragon Dark for my team in particular. Next up in 8 we have Ninetales and Hisui and Lilligant, and then in 9 we have Wake and Fezandipiti. These are the big threats I'm worried about. So we've seen what the enemy's team has to offer. In part 3 we'll talk about my response plan. What can I do to fight back against these 10 threats? And I'll go over some strategies that I've thought of, some interactions that I've kind of seen, and by the end of it we'll have a pretty good idea about who I might want on my final team for this week. See you then. Welcome once again to the grid. Now, I've trimmed the grid back a bit because I was spending too long looking at the grid. This time, I've already infiltrated your minds with the grid throughout the first moment by showing you the matchups at the end of each Pokemon's overview. So you've already seen all of these pluses and minuses, and I don't have to go through them individually. Points overall, Ursaluna is coming out on top with 6 winning matchups. In second place, with 5 points, we have Sneasler, Ogerpon, Mandibuzz, and Lantern, and that's probably a good 5 Pokemon for a team, and then I just choose a 5th from the remainers. Probably a Fairy, Comfey or Hatterene. But then I'm leaving Volbeat behind. Maybe I want Volbeat, then I have to drop a 5-point Pokemon. We'll see. It's going to get a bit dicey, but that's what we're here to explore. On my opponent's part, well, Fezandipiti looks the scariest. Look, I mean, 8 winning matchups, it only loses to Sneasler and Ursaluna. Thankfully, Sneasler and Ursaluna are the cornerstones of my strategy, so maybe it's not as scary as I think it is. Walking Wake also looks pretty bad. It has only 7 winning matchups, but the Pokemon that it loses to are going to be competing for the rest of my team slots. So I probably want Lantern, I probably want Ogerpon, I probably want Comfey, but I don't know if I can fit all 3. Yeah, we'll see. And then as for bad things, Rotom is looking bad. I think it's bad. I've always thought it was bad. I think Tera Ice is bait, but I might be wrong. Maybe I'll be surprised. If it gets ripped by Rotom, then I'll be eating my words. And Roaring Moon is also looking not great. It's just because it's got a bad typing and coverage into my team in particular. I just have too many fairies and physical walls that can stop it. And ursaluna also has a favourable matchup. And Sneasler, even if I get it, if I win the kind of speed war where he has photosynthesis, I have unburden. If I win that speed war, I will kill him with close combat. So Roaring Moon looks pretty bad. It's the kind of Pokemon that's hard not to bring because it's so naturally strong. But I don't think it's necessary for them for this matchup. They've got other things they need to be doing with their time. Again, though, Roaring Moon might surprise me. I don't know the full extent of what it's capable of. So in this part, we're just going to talk a bit about a few strategies and thoughts that I have at this point in the process. I'm not sure how long it will take. This is a bit experimental. You'll be able to tell from the video length, but I can't tell. It could be 5 minutes or it could be 5 hours. I'm thinking it'll be pretty short though. So the first thing to look at is the lead. Who do I want to send in at the start on turn 1? This is the easiest turn to prepare for. It's the only turn that I know the general state of the game. I don't know what Pokemon they'll bring, but unless they have like some crazy binary between two choices, there'll probably be a lead that I will be pretty confident in starting with. So, who's it going to be? Well, I have 4 prospective candidates. I think these are my best leads in general. I can look at others if none of these impress me, but we'll run through this list and I'll see if I am taken by any of these 4. The reasons I like them are given on the left. So Rillaboom, it sets up my terrain straight away. It's also just good with Choice Band. It can do a lot of damage and it can U-turn. My pivots are Ogerpon and Sneasler. If I bring Sneasler as my lead, I'll be better served giving it a Choice Band or a Focus Sash or something, rather than a Grassy Seed. But that's okay. I mean, the Poison Touch Choice Band set is good. And then Ogerpon does a similar thing. It's a bit slower, but it can set up spikes. And that's really nice. Hazards are just always nice. And then finally, Ursaluna is an option. Ursaluna is a Pokemon that I seem to spend all of my battles trying to find safe ways to bring in so that it can click Blood Moon and win the game. And what's a safe way to bring Ursaluna in? Start with it. It's not going to take any damage being sent onto the battlefield turn 1. Now, if they have some really horrible matchups, then I won't do this. But I do think it's worth considering. So, what do they have? Well, the obvious lead for them is Ninetales. It's a Sun team, it wants the Sun. So, if you've played any OU ladder lately, I mean, I'm not that high rated, I'm like 1500. If you've played any OU ladder, you'll know that when you see a Sun team or a Rain team, you'll generally see a Torkoal and a Pelipper turn 1, because Rain team wants the Rain, Sun team wants the Sun. If they lead Ninetales, I don't like Rillaboom at all. I think Rillaboom sucks. I can't even safely U-turn because they outspeed me and they might just kill me with Weather Ball. So that's not good. Rillaboom loses to their most common lead. Ogerpon is okay. It does get the spikes up, but it struggles to hurt Ninetales. I can run Stomping Tantrum to hit it super effectively, but it's kind of a weak move. And Ninetales just outpaces Ogerpon on the damage front if it wants to, or it just takes a hit and then baton passes out, or it just switches and it's done its job because it puts Sun up. I think that as a pivot, Sneasler is better against Ninetales because I can click U-turn and maybe poison it, or I can just threaten big damage with close combat. And then Ursaluna is probably the best option against Ninetales because I can just click Blood Moon, and Ninetales doesn't do enough damage to stop me clicking Blood Moon, so it has to decide, does it switch out and let something else take a bunch of damage from Blood Moon, or do they just sack it to Blood Moon? And either way, I'm happy. So yeah, Ursaluna looks good into Ninetales. The next possibilities are their pivots. So these are playing the same. It's fast, it's strong, it has a pivoting move. And it's kind of a mixed bag. So Rillaboom struggles a lot against Fezandipiti and Roaring Moon. It's okay into Walking Wake and Rotom, but it's still not great. I mean, it doesn't like taking a Draco Meteor from Wake. Ogerpon looks even worse. Ogerpon kind of loses to all of their Pokemon. I think I've said that the Fezandipiti matchup is even, but it's only even if they bring a set that isn't a like dedicated lead set. If they just bring like a Choice Scarf Gunk Shot Fezandipiti, I think Ogerpon just dies. So I don't like Ogerpon as a lead. Sneasel looks much better. It beats Fezandipiti with Dire Claw. It beats Rotom with Throat Chop. It loses to Walking Wake. However, it can fake it out and get a poison. It can U-turn and hit it and then switch into Lantern. It can close combat it for big damage before Walking Wake can respond. So Sneasel looks like my better pivot. And then Ursaluna looks really good into everything except Wake. So on the balance, Ursaluna and Sneasel are my top contenders. And then finally, the hazard setters. So Carkol, Forretress, and Tusk. They can all set up hazards, and they can all spin as well. Ogerpon's really good into these Pokemon. It has the coverage to kill them all. It has Taunt to stop them getting their hazards up. It outspeeds them all, except for Booster Energy, Speed Great Tusk. It's good. Rillaboom's pretty bad. I think we can rule Rillaboom out as a lead. Sneasel is not so great. It kind of gets shut down by Forretress, but at least it can U-turn into something better. And then Ursaluna also looks good. And in the end, I decided, unless my opponent brings a truly crazy looking team, I'm going to lead Ursaluna and just go for the upfront damage. Here is what I intend to click turn 1 if they lead that Pokemon. Against Ninetales and all the weather setters, it's just Blood Moon. I click Blood Moon, but they can't really deal with it. Their switch-ins are Carkol and Forretress, but those two are slower and they die to an Earth Power follow-up. So I hit them with Blood Moon, and then I hit them with an Earth Power, and they both die. So they're not really switch-ins. And just as my opponent doesn't have anything. They don't have a way to take a Blood Moon nicely. And I was worried about the Walking Wake matchup, because I was like, I can't beat this, right? Like, it's Ursaluna's Achilles heel. But I can give Ursaluna an Assault Vest and max its special defense out, and it will survive a Hydro Steam and then kill in return with Blood Moon. So I don't actually lose to Walking Wake. So Ursaluna looks good. Now, if they lead with Carkol or Forretress, I'd rather click Earth Power because they both resist Blood Moon, whereas they don't resist Earth Power. If my opponent switches in one of their ground resists, Rotom or Lilligant, it's kind of fine. I'll just click Blood Moon on the next. Lilligant is definitely the worst case. Lilligant lead would destroy Ursaluna, but I think it's quite unlikely. I just don't think Lilligant is a very intuitive lead. It doesn't have U-turn, it doesn't have any hazards, it's not that fast outside of Sun. I don't think they're going to lead Lilligant. If they do, then good on them, they've read me. And the Great Tusk is the one where I'm forced to switch out, because I can't take close combat. So I'll have to switch into my physical wall. But yeah, that's it. I mean, it's pretty good. 7 out of 8 matchups, I am staying in with Ursaluna, which is what you want out of a lead. Okay, the next question is, what are we going to do about the weather? So they have Ninetales to set it, and they have 4 main benefactors. 3 photosynthesis Pokemon, and 1 chlorophyll Pokemon. They don't have a fire type, aside from Ninetales, which is interesting, but it doesn't matter, they've got a lot of strong threat. So what can I do in response? Well, I can bring Rain Dance Volbeat, which has Prankster, so Rain Dance always goes first, it turns off the sun, it halves fire type damage, and because of its typing, it walls Great Tusk and Lilligant. It will die to Roaring Moon if Roaring Moon has a choice band, and it will definitely die to Walking Wake. But walling 2 out of 4 is not bad, and turning off the sun is good. I have other Rain Dance Pokemon, but I think Volbeat's the best option for a Rain Dancer if I'm that scared of sun. The only caveat with Rain, though, is that Walking Wake likes the rain too. Walking Wake with the rain-boosted Hydro Steam is just as scary as Walking Wake with the sun-boosted Hydro Steam. So it doesn't totally deal with Walking Wake. And it still seems kind of hard to justify a team slot for Volbeat. The other thing I can do is come up with a defensive answer. And looking at it, I feel like the core of Lantern and Mandibuzz does what I need. So Mandibuzz is kind of like Volbeat, but better. It doesn't just lose to Ninetales, and it also beats Roaring Moon. It's a physical wall, so I have to put my Eevees into defense if I want to do this. So I can't stop Walking Wake, but Lantern can. Lantern loses to the other 3, but it's one of the only things on my team that can actually stop Walking Wake. They can water absorb a Hydro Steam, and it can shrug off a Draco Meteor with Assault Vest. And then the last thing I want to look at is my sweeping options. I've narrowed it down to 3 potential sweepers that I think are particularly good in this matchup. The first is Sneasler. I've calced what happens if I have a Sneasler with Swords Dance boost, Unburden boost and +1 defense from Grassy Seed, and my opponent has let me do that and is now switching something. This is the result. The green pluses represent Pokemon that Sneasler just kills, right? Kills without competition. So it just one-shots Roaring Moon with close combat, it one-shots Walking Awake with close combat, it one-shots Lilligant with Dire Claw, it does great. The yellow is the amount of damage Sneasler can do. So if I can wear that Pokemon down to that much health, then I'm golden. And it's not too hard. I mean, getting Great Tusk below half health is annoying. That could take a while, but all I need is some chip, and then I'm away. Alomomola, Forretress, and Fezandipiti don't need that much chip on them to die to Sneasler, and then I kind of just win. My opponent doesn't have any good priority moves, which means they're really relying on the photosynthesis making them the fastest thing on the field. So, if I can get even faster, their team kind of falls apart. It looks really good. The only problem with this is that I have to devote a team slot to Rillaboom, and Rillaboom on its own is really bad in this matchup. So I have to kind of play half a Pokemon down in order to get this. But maybe it's worth it. I also have to get a free turn somewhere to click Swords Dance, but that's not impossible. Yeah, it looks really strong. I could also go for a different consumable item, but there aren't any other items that are as easy to activate as Grassy Seed. Mirror Herb is a funny one that I was considering. It requires me making a good read, though. If I switch Sneasler in at the right time on something else that's boosting, Great Tusk using Bulk Up, Salamence using Dragon Dance, and Mirror Herb it, I probably just win on the spot, because I get the boosts and Unburden. Yeah, but if I mistime it, I risk not being able to do anything. So, that seems unreliable. If Rillaboom was better, it would be a no-brainer, but because Rillaboom kind of sucks, I'm not so sure. Ogerpon is the other option. The thing is, it's quite a lot worse. You can see there's 3 Pokemon, the red minuses, that it will always lose to no matter what health they're on. So even if the Walking Weight comes in at 1% health, it's still going to one-shot Ogerpon with Draco Meteor, and it's going to outspeed it because of photosynthesis. That's what not having Unburden does. Ogerpon's fast, but in this world, it's not the fastest kid on the block. It still looks okay though. I mean, it gets through a lot of their team. It's just, is a sweeper viable if it's only going to be able to sweep 3 Pokemon on the enemy team? I don't know. It looks a bit shaky. And I suspect most or all of the Pokemon that it loses to actually come to the battle. So it could be half my opponent's team that Ogerpon is just worthless against. And then finally there's Comfey. Comfey's really interesting. I have to get a Calm Mind up with it, and it's quite hard to find a turn. But it's really good. I mean, it beats all of their strong Pokemon. It loses so badly to Forretress and Fezandipiti. At least with Ogerpon, if they bring in Roaring Moon or Walking Wake, I can, hit them with a good move on the switch. I can click Play Rough and one-shot the Roaring Moon, for free. I'm not setting up that turn, but I am killing something. Comfey, they can just bring in Fezandipiti or Forretress until the end of time. Comfey will never be able to break through them. If they give me, 6 turns to set up Calm Mind with Comfey, Stored Power will one-shot Fezandipiti, but they could just be Choice Scarf, Gunk Shot, and one-shot me anyway, because Stored Power doesn't get triage priority like the rest of Comfey's moves. So I'm not thrilled about Comfey. I'd rather use Comfey as a revenge killer, Choice Spexy kind of thing than a sweeper. So after all that, I'm ready to build my team. I'm prepared, I'm ready to go into action, and the battle is not far away. Actually, it's already over. I've done it. But I'm recording this late, as always. So let's pretend that the battle's not far away, even though I actually know what's going to happen. But I made these predictions before the battle. So these were my predictions. I think I made them the night before, but it might have been 2 days before. I can say that Past Henry made some mistakes. Past Henry was a fool and a charlatan, and I'm the cooler Henry, and if he and I were in a room, I would win the staring contest. But don't tell him I said that. Oh wait, you can't, because he's in the past and I'm in the present. Joke's on him. Anyway, let's see what Past Henry had to say for predictions for my opponent's team. If you imagine a single slot on the opponent's team, I might say that there's a 100% chance of a Pokemon being there, or there's a 50-50 chance of 2 Pokemon being in that slot. That's all well and good, but the opponent's team has 6 slots. So what I've done is I've taken 600 percentage points and distributed them amongst the 10 Pokemon, so that when you add up all of the probabilities, it'll add to 600, the probability of the team existing. We're going to go from lowest to highest, so least likely to most likely. The least likely is Alomomola. The main reason being, I think it's really hard to justify bringing a water type into a grassy terrain team. Now this one's controversial. In second place, at 30%, I think it's Roaring Moon. Now there's a few caveats. The first caveat is that 30% isn't actually that low. It's 1 in 3. It's not great odds, but it's not unreasonable. This battle, I'm not that confident in any of my predictions. I think there's a lot of options for my opponent, so I'm kind of hedging my bets. I just think that when they're looking at their 4 Sun Sweepers, they're going to see this one with its double weakness to Fairy, and they're going to see my Comfey, and they're going to see that I have no weaknesses to Dark or Dragon on my entire team, and they're going to say Roaring Moon is not it. I want Great Tusk, I want Walking Wake, or I want Hisui and Lilligant. I don't want Roaring Moon. It's not that it's bad. I think it just has way too much competition for its niche. In third to last place, we have Carkol at 40%. It's a little worse than Rotom. The thing is, though, Carkol's kind of valid, because if they're choosing between Forretress and Carkol, Carkol has some advantages. It's better into Ogerpon, because it's not 4 times weak to Ivy Cudgel. It can Tera, which can flip a bunch of matchups. And the fire coverage, Fire Rock, is much better against my team than anything Forretress can do. Now, it's really weak, and I can knock off its Violite and then it's useless. I think that it's about as good as my next ranked one, Forretress. I think they're both about as likely to come as each other. I think it's very unlikely my opponent brings both, because they kind of do the same thing. Defensive hazard setter / spinner. But I think it's fairly likely my opponent will want to run a more offensive Great Tusk, and will want to offload the hazard duties onto one of these two. Which one? I don't know. If you had to put a gun to my head and say, Henry, I've got a gun to your head for some reason, and I'm going to shoot you unless you tell me if you think it's going to be Forretress or Carkol, I would say, I guess I would say Carkol. And as future Henry, I would die, because the spoiler is that it wasn't Carkol. But past Henry was a fool, and he didn't know that. He thought it might be Carkol, so he's dead. He got shot by the gun to the head guy. If that guy put a gun to my head, future Henry, you know what I'd do? I'd do a triple backflip, and then I'd strangulate him all the way to death. And so with those guys out of the way, you can see the 6 that I think will be on my opponent's team. First of all, Rotom at 60%. I think it's either going to be Rotom or Carkol. I don't think they bring both, but they probably want one. So you can see 60 plus 40 is 100, so between them they add up to a team slot. I just don't know who they'll choose, but I'm giving Rotom slight favorability. Next, in 4th and 5th, is Lilligant and Tusk. They kind of do the same thing, and then Walking Wake, I think, is slightly better than those two, but not by that much. I don't think my opponent needs all 3. They all have the same weakness to Fairy. They're kind of overlapping in what they're doing. I think if you're dropping one, you're probably dropping Lilligant, but you could drop any one of them and be fine, I think. And then the remaining 2 Pokemon are Fezandipiti at 90, and Ninetales at 95. Now, Ninetales is not the best Pokemon on their team, but it is the most likely to come, because it sets up all the other Pokemon in the sun. If they decide not to bring the sun, I'll be over the moon, because the sun is what makes their team scary. Without the sun, their team is just like a kind of generic, kind of bulky, kind of offensive kind of thing, but I could beat it, no problem. With the sun, though, there is a problem. Tell me what you think of these ratings, and if you see past Henry, you should berate him, because he was a fool and he thought they would bring Carkol and they didn't bring Carkol. So don't let past Henry get away with the crimes he wants to commit. See you in just a moment. Hi, this is past Henry here. This is the first part I'm recording chronologically. I've done all the PowerPoints and the predictions and everything, but I haven't had any time to actually record, so I am the primordial Henry. I'm the first one. You will see my future self in your past, but remember, I birthed him. He came from my body. And on that note, the battle starts in 6 minutes, more or less. I want to show you the teams I've got. We'll be very quick, obviously we've only got 6 minutes, because I've had a lot of different ideas, I've gone back and forth, it's a bit chaotic, I don't know if I've actually prepped anything meaningful. Let's have a look. So I definitely want Sneasler and Ursaluna Bloodmoon. The others are Ogerpon, Comfey, Mandibuzz, Lantern, Volbeat. I'm not bringing Rillaboom. I don't think the Grassy train is worth it. And if they bring Grassy Seed Acrobatic Salamence, I'll feel so smart. So I'm not bringing Rillaboom, and I'm not bringing Go-Goat. I don't think Go-Goat's any good. But that still leaves me with 8, and I can only bring 6, so I have to drop 2. So my first thought was actually this team, with Volbeat, with the funny anti-sun moveset. We've got Assault Vest Ursaluna, Assault Vest Lantern, we've got Comfey as our fairy, so this is not bringing Hatterene, and it's not bringing Ogerpon. But I did some testing, and I was like, no, I just don't think Volbeat is good. It's so hard to like bring Volbeat. You feel like, oh, I'm going to lose because I brought Volbeat of all things. So I changed it to Ogerpon. But then I was like, oh, I really like Hatterene. Hatterene looks really good. Let me switch to Hatterene. And then I thought, maybe I don't need Ogerpon, right? I drop Ogerpon and put on Lantern. And then I thought, maybe I don't need Lantern. Maybe I make Hatterene specially bulky with Assault Vest, and then run this double fairy, no Lantern. But now I'm like, no, that's insane. I need a water resist. I think I'm going to drop Mandibuzz. So we've heard from Past Henry about my thoughts going into it, and I wanted to issue a formal apology to Past Henry. My more recent past self was quite mean to him, but that guy is also now Past Henry, and I'm Present Henry. And there's no need to fight between us. You know, we all work for the same cause, which is getting out these videos every week. And things just got heated. We said things we didn't mean. We can move forward as a amalgamation for now. So, this is my final team. They are pretty jolly. You'll notice there's no Mandibuzz. That's scary because I spent all the moment talking about how Mandibuzz was my main check to physical Pokemon. I've decided to try using Hatterene as my physical defensive switch-in. We'll see how it goes. The first Pokemon we are going to look at is Sneasler. Just a quick reminder, I have a full team breakdown video, which is up here. I'll put it up here, which goes over my Pokemon in more detail, describes all of the possible sets they can use, my general plans for synergy. This video, I'll skip a lot of that, and just talk about the specific choices I made to beat the opponent's team. So, without further ado, I decided for my final set to go with Dark. So I went Close Combat, Diaclaw, Throat Chop, U-Turn. And I went with Dark because Rotom is the thing that resists both my stabs. So with Throat Chop, we one-shot Rotom, and we win that matchup. With Choice Scarf, I outspeed Roaring Moon, Walking Wake, and Great Tusk, even if they're in the sun, which they will be. So that's really good. Not only is it really good, it might catch my opponent unawares, because if they're expecting Unburden, they'll think they outspeed me. I took 4 out of speed because I still outspeed Roaring Moon by a point, both with Scarf and without, and I put it in HP. Apart from that, it's just 252, 252. And then Poison Touch, because we're not using Unburden, and Poison Touch is nice. I can get those fast U-turn pivots. So here are some offensive calcs that you want to keep in mind. Diaclaw is only doing 40 to 48% to Fezandipiti. Now that's an HP invested Fezandipiti, but we're still 3-hit KOing, and it gets Roost. So we're not beating Fezandipiti outright, but we're doing a sizable chunk. If it switches into us, it's going to take 45-ish and then 45-ish. So if we can get spikes up, or we can get any chip damage on it, then Sneasler at least stops it from switching it. Now it can still come in and force us out unless it's damaged, but I think Sneasler should be enough of a pressing force to keep Fezandipiti from totally running away with the game. And then Close Combat is 61 to 73 to Walking Wake. So we're not killing outright, but we're doing quite a lot. If my opponent lets their Pokemon get too low, get too weakened, Sneasler with the Choice Scarf can easily clean up. And I'm hoping they just won't expect the outrageous speed we're bringing to the table. Defensively, well, here's some of the problems. We get one shot by Hydro Steam from Walking Wake. We're not even close to surviving. And Gyro Ball from Forretress does more than half of our health. Forretress is a problem for Sneasler. It can switch in. It's neutral to close combat, but its defense is so high that it can take them and then force us out with that Gyro Ball. So a bit of a worry, but I'm quite happy with this Choice Scarf thing. I think if I didn't bring Sneasler, there would just be too many fast Pokemon on my opponent's team that I don't have the tools to deal with. But I do, because I've got Sneasler. Next up is Ogerpon, the Oni. It's got a mask. I didn't bring any coverage moves. My final set had my 2 stab moves. I switched Woodhammer out for Solar Blade. I figured the sun's going to be up, so I may as well take advantage of a slightly stronger move with no recoil. And then I've got Spike's U-turn. I just wanted to be able to switch in and out, control the speed of the battle, bring in Ursaluna Blood Moon with U-turn. In hindsight, there was something to be said for Play Rough. It is really good. There's a lot to be said for Stomping Tantrum 2, just to flip the Ninetales matchup in my favour. But I really, really wanted Spikes. Spikes just seems so important. As for EVs, well, I have enough speed to outspeed Fezandipiti, which is important. I wasn't willing to commit all the way to outspeeding Walking Wake, because I figured if they have a Photosynthesis Walking Wake, they will outspeed me anyway. So I've just outspeed Fezandipiti and put the rest into HP. So here are some important calcs. This is why I was willing to drop Stomping Tantrum. Ivy Cudgel is just so strong in Sun. I'm easily two-shotting Ninetales, even though it resists. I'm doing more than half its health. It can't switch in, I'll just hit it again. Stomping Tantrum doesn't push me up into the one-shot range. It's still 2-hit KOs. So I figure I may as well just click Ivy Cudgel and do a crazy amount of damage with a resisted move. And then Alomomola cannot withstand Ogerpon. That calc is with a max HP, max defense Alomomola. It's taking way too much damage from Solar Blade. The base power of Solar Blade is too high, it's super effective. Alomomola does not stand a chance. Defensively, there are some problems though. We get one shot by close combat from Great Tusk. We also get one shot from Headlong Rush. They're both neutral and the same base power. Technically it's a roll to kill, but it's a roll in my opponent's favour, and I would have to be on absolutely full health for the roll to even come into play. And then Fezandipiti, if it runs Gunk Shot, especially Choice Scarf Gunk Shot, just beats me. I can't stop it. It always wins against Ogerpon with the Choice Scarf. Ogerpon, I think, is the weakest link on the team. I could have dropped it. I just felt bad not bringing hazards. Maybe I shouldn't have. They've got so many Rapid Spinners anyway. But I felt bad not bringing hazards. And because it's Sun, I was like, well, Hearthflame is like a Sun Pokemon. But in hindsight, I'm not sure that it does enough to differentiate itself from my other strong Pokemon. Ursaluna, the hero of not only the bear's own story, but of everybody's story. Ursaluna, the bear, is ridiculous. So here's the set I went with. It's Assault Vest 4 attacks, Blood Moon, Earth Power, Vacuum Wave, Moonblast, max special attack to get those crazy kills, and then max special defense with the Assault Vest to shrug off special attack. Now, there are a few... Now, I'll talk about the offensive calcs first, and then the defensive ones. So offensively, Blood Moon is crazy. I don't have a boosting item this time around, so it's not quite as crazy. You can see its rolls to one-shot these Pokemon. But it's a neutral move without a boosting item that's a roll to just one-shot Walking Wake. And it almost always one-shots Great Tusk unless they really invest in special defense. So, yeah, sign me up. I mean, I'm happy to just click Blood Moon and one-shot things. Defensively, I have some problem. I'm Assault Vest and max special defense, but I still get one-shot by Specs, Hydro Steam, and the Sun. It's just too many multipliers. However, I'm intending to use Ursaluna as a lead, and outside of Sun, without that 50% damage boost, Ursaluna always survives Hydro Steam, just barely, and revenge kills with Blood Moon. So if they lead Walking Wake, and they don't have Sun, Ursaluna actually wins the matchup. The way it works is, I click Blood Moon, they click Hydro Steam, we both do like 90% to each other, and then I win with Vacuum Wave priority. You can see Salamence, Banded Outrage, doesn't kill me. It doesn't even come that close, and then I have Moonblast, which is 4 times effective. So, can't switch into Salamence, but I win the matchup. You can see if I can survive a Specs Hydro Steam from Walking Wake, I can definitely survive a Tera Blast Ice from Rotom. It's much weaker than Walking Wake. Without the Assault Vest and the Special Defense boost, I would die to the Tera Blast Ice, and definitely to the Hydro Steam. But because of all my special defense investment, I survive them, which my opponent, I'm hoping, doesn't expect. They'll think, yes, I can use Tera Ice to sneakily beat their Ursaluna. No, I've seen it coming. I've prepared, and I will instead sneakily beat your Rotom by surviving its hit. Next up, Comfey. I was intending to bring Specs, but I saw growth, and I was like, hang on. Isn't that really good? I mean, it's basically Nasty Plot, but I think that's better than Calm Mind. I just want the upfront damage. It makes me really strong in the Sun. I like it a lot. And importantly, well, not importantly, I didn't bring Sword Power, but I considered it because growth in the Sun gives you 4 stat boosts, which puts stored power instantly to 100, whereas Calm Mind only puts it to 60 after the first one. But 1 growth puts stored power to 100 base power, 2 puts it to 180, and that's worthwhile. That actually does let me beat Fezandipiti without wasting 700 turns. But I still wasn't sure if I was going to be able to do it, mostly because of Forretress. Forretress can just come in and take a hit and then kill me with a steel move in 1 hit. So I figured I'll kind of hedge my bets. If I get a free turn to growth, maybe I win the game. But if I don't, that's fine. Here are the calcs. You can see against Walking Wake, Draining Kiss is going crazy. Well, we're one-shotting it, which I like. But against Forretress, we're doing pitiful, puny damage, which I don't like. Now, they're probably not going to stay in on Comfey with Walking Wake or switch into it. But forcing them to leave their sweepers behind, waste turns switching into Forretress, is still really good. I think Comfey is kind of a deterrent Pokemon. Even if it does nothing in the battle, it stops my opponent from committing to these scary offensive plans. Defensively, it's weak. I mean, it gets one-shot by Gunk Shot, it is a roll to kill it with Hydro Steam. It does lose, but that's okay because I am here for its offensive power. Next up is Lantern. I have Scald, Discharge, Dazzling Gleam, and Volt Switch. My biggest problem with Lantern is not being able to do enough damage, so I'm kind of relying on the secondary effects of Scald and Discharge to make progress. But if I get the Paralysis or I get the Burn, then I'm really happy. I chose Water Absorb over Volt Absorb purely because I'm more threatened by Walking Wake than Rotom. We'll see if that's the right decision. And I chose Tera Steel over Tera Flying because I wanted a bit of assurance against Fezandipiti. Lantern's not the best switch in, but at least I'd have an immunity I could switch in to kind of try to make something happen. Yeah, and then EVs, it's just max special attack to try to do some kind of damage, and then max special defense. You can see Lantern is not that impressive. My super effective Dazzling Gleam is doing less than half to Wake. My super effective Stab Scald is doing less than half to Tusk. Pod, are you off? You off? The defenses are the point. You can see that Solar Beam is shrugged off. 36 to 42 from invested Ninetales is nothing. I don't care about Solar Beam. And then Specs Draco Meteor is doing, on average, less than half my health. And it's debuffing them, so their next one is going to do half damage. And that's the point of Lantern. It's just my most solid special wall. Now, it doesn't have reliable recovery, so it will get worn down and eventually die. It's not reliable in the long run, but I need something... Oh, Paul, you want to come back in? And finally, we have Herein. Here's my final set. I was tossing back and forth between Nuzzle and Baton Pass as my 4th move, so I went with this. And then for EVs, I've just gone max into Physical Bulk. I want to be able to switch into Great Tusk. It does mean that I'm not as strong as I could be. I still 2-shot Fezandipiti, which is important. And I still easily kill Forretress, 180% minimum, without special attack investment. Forretress is dead to Mystical Fire. I take a lot back from Gyro Ball, but so be it. And the point of the investment is I survive Choice Band, Headlong Rush. I don't survive it very well, but I heal almost all of that damage back with Draining Kiss if he tries to click it against me. So my hope is they'll do the calc, think I'm not this bulky, click it thinking they'll kill, not kill, and then I'll heal back with Draining Kiss. We'll see if it plays out like that. The cost to all my defense investment is that my special defense is a bit weak. It's still good because the base stat's good, but it is a roll for my opponent to kill me with Specs Hydro Steam. So, here are the sets in the Pokemon Showdown Team Builder. You'll notice that my Hatterene doesn't have those 8 special attack EVs. That's because I forgot to put them in for the game. So in game, my Hatterene was just slightly weaker than it could have been. I don't think it ended up mattering, but it is a silly blunder on my end. So that's it. That's the team. Let me know what you think. Let me know if there's anything you would have done differently. Who do you think wins the matchup? Who do you think is favoured in your mind, having seen the video this far? Place your bets now, folks. And respond in the comments if you want to, because I read them all. I don't necessarily respond to them all because of my crippling fear of looking at people's comments. I'm quite afraid. This is the problem with YouTube, is that I have like horrible anxiety about responding to messages. So probably I won't reply to your comment, but I will see them. I've seen that I've got like some real views, and I'm too scared to click the analytics. I shouldn't be, because it would be interesting to know whether my 200 viewers on that video are leprechauns from Leprechaun World, fae creatures trying to beguile me, merfolk in the lake, maybe comfy enjoyers who have come from Vinland to watch my videos, or ghosts, of course, from Purgatory. But I'm too scared to click the analytics, so I don't actually know that you're ghosts. It's just my running hypothesis. And I got a single dislike on one of my videos, and that stressed me out. Now, you're allowed to dislike. I don't mind if you dislike. It's good if you dislike, because it tells me what you don't like. But if one dislike is going to make me go, oh, I'm a failure, then I'm not going to respond to your negative comments. If you say something really nice, I might respond. Or if you say something really insightful about my team building, or my opponent's team building, or the matchup, I might respond. If you say something mean, it'll still boost my engagement, so by all means. But parasocially, I might take some psychic damage. Anyway, I digress. Let's go to moment 4, the battle itself. It is moments before the battle, and I'm booting up, and I'm wondering, what am I going to see? Are you ready? 3, 2, 1. There it is. Rotom, Fezandipiti, Great Tusk, Ninetales, Forretress, Roaring Moon. How right was I? I did okay. 50-50 again. That's what I got last video too. It seems to be my average. It's exactly what the null hypothesis would expect if I was guessing randomly, which is not great. At least I'm not totally failing. But yeah, I thought they would bring Wake and Lilligant, and I thought they wouldn't bring Forretress or Roaring Moon. In just a moment, we'll hand over to Studio Henry to look at my live reactions to the battle and my future selves' reactions to my reactions to the battle. But first, a quick detour down Tempo Lane. Here is the overall tempo for the battle. A few things to point out. Ursaluna looks really, really good. It has 5+ tempos and only 1 minus. It only loses to Great Tusk. That's amazing. Ursaluna, as usual, proves dominating. Roaring Moon looks really, really bad for my opponent. It only really beats Sneasler, and the funny thing is it doesn't even beat Sneasler because I'm the Choice Scarf set, which specifically beats Roaring Moon. So Roaring Moon just looks terrible for my opponent. Fezandipiti and Great Tusk look really good for my opponent. They're definitely their most scary options. Comfey looks alright for me. We knew it was going to look like this. It only beats their offensive Pokemon. I thought they might bring 4, but they only brought 2. Tusk and Moon. So Comfey's not going to be too good in this matchup. Lantern's going to be good. Sneasler's going to be okay. Hereine's going to be okay. Overall, who is the matchup favored towards? Well, me. I have 18 positive tempo matchups, 3 neutral ones, and 15 losing ones. I think going into the battle, I'm slightly favored. I think the matchup is harder for my opponent than for me, but it's anyone's game. You know, my opponent has lots of ways to make moves, and I don't have any surefire roads to victory. But I think, from a neutral perspective, if I loaded into this game, I would rather be on my team than my opponent's. With all that out of the way, all that is left for us to do is to watch the battle itself. Thank you so much for sticking with me this far. I've been Field Henry. We're turning over to Studio Henry. I will see you after the fact for the wrap-up. I am his future self. He did birth me. He is the primordial Henry. However, I am the one in control. I'm present Henry, and I control this guy. So if I want him to stop, he stops. He will do whatever I want. So what we're going to do is he's going to do a battle, and I am going to react to it. Consider this a Henry reacts to Henry reacting to a live Pokemon battle. We'll tag out me and this guy. He will give live commentary, and I will give more measured post hoc analysis. Oh great man up there. I hope that you and I can work together. I know that I've frozen you in time, and I will continue to do so as needed. But we can be friends. We don't have to be enemies. Okie doke. Here we are in the game. So there's no Walking Wake, which means I could have dropped Lantern. I could have dropped it. I didn't drop it. I could have. I could have. It's possible. But how was I to know, right? I couldn't have known. I don't think dropping Lantern was the right idea unless I, like, cheated and looked at what Pokemon my opponent would bring. I could have brought Mandibuzz instead. Mandibuzz would have been better, but how was I to know that they wouldn't bring Walking Wake? Let's have a look. My plan was to lead Ursaluna. Is that still good? I think so. It is still good, but I respect myself for double checking. I think that their team was a bit unconventional. It was a good idea to make sure that Ursaluna was still good, right? Okay. Okay, so it's Fezandipiti. Well, I'm okay with this. I don't think Fezandipiti can ruin my day. I mean, I think we just click Blood Moon, right? Yeah, you just click Blood Moon. That is right. Good job. I don't look how afraid I was. I was terrified. I was terrified of the prospect of clicking Blood Moon. But I click Blood Moon. Sure, Earth Power does more, but not that much more to Fezandipiti, and Blood Moon is much harder for them to resist. Is there another choice? The other choice is Earth Power, but I'm going to click Blood Moon. I'm a Blood Moon clicker. Here's Great Tusk. Beautiful. Beautiful 86%. I was so happy when I saw this. I was like, oh my god. I mean, you'll see my reaction, but watching it back, I mean, it brings me just as much joy the second time as it brought the first. Nice. Nice. And now, so that Blood Moon did 86%, which means this Great Tusk has some bulk. Has a lot of bulk? Yeah, okay. Vacuum Wave. I'm doing it. I'm doing it. I don't think they have enough bulk, so if you look at my calc, if they're max special defense and max HP, but not plus special defense, Blood Moon would do 68 to 80. It did more than that. Vacuum Wave would do 13 to 15. So I think I can pretty reliably kill this with Vacuum Wave. Nice. Good job, Ursaluna. Good start. So that was a better start than I could have hoped for. I mean, taking out the Great Tusk on turn 2 without taking any damage, just a clean +1. Just amazing. I mean, it felt so good. Whatever else happens in the battle, I was very happy with this opening, obviously. Amazing start. Shout out to the bear. It's already having a good game, and I haven't even done anything yet. Now the question is who comes in. But I'm happy that Great Tusk is down. I mean, killing Great Tusk wasn't even... Okay, so this thing's probably going to body press me. Question is, or do I just go for another Blood Moon? I should probably do the safe thing and switch to Hatterene, right? Yeah, I will. Try to balance the spikes if they go for them. He explodes. Okay, I wasn't expecting that. Goodbye, Forretress. You can see the surprise on my face. I was not expecting the explosion. It kind of neutered Hatterene. I mean, it almost killed it outright, but Hatterene is going to really struggle to do anything now because it's slower than everything. But I'm glad I got out of there before it could explode on Ursaluna. And I'm glad they don't have hazards anymore. And I'm just clean up 2 now. +2. Boom. My mind and the opponent's Forretress have both exploded. Okay. Here's Fezandipiti. Now, do I preserve Hatterene? Do I need Hatterene? Not really. Nah. I'll just Psyshock. Okay, I mean, that was good. He could have missed Play Rough. Okay, and then... So it's physical. So it's probably got Gunk Shot. Poison Heart, it's probably like this. So if I go into Ursaluna, I look good. I find it quite funny how I'm making these massive prep videos, I'm doing all this work, and then every week my winning strategy is actually just, I'm going to click Blood Moon a lot and do a lot of damage with it. There's almost no nuance to what I end up doing. It's like I have done like a quadruple backflip somersault thing, and the end result was like pouring my breakfast milk, rice milk in my case, lactose intolerance, into my bowl of gluten-free cereal, because I'm a frail little flower bud, and I can't eat anything nice. We're clicking it. The reason I'm not clicking Earth Power is that I don't want to let his Rotom in for free. I guess I kind of let it in for free next turn. It would be so funny if Mind's Eye also let you hit Levitating Pokemon with Earth Power. I mean, it would be even more busted than it already is. But I remember in the battle, I'm not sure if I say it coming up, but I was thinking, hang on, hit Rotom with Mind's Eye? I don't think I can. I'm pretty sure it's Scrappy, which is just normal and fighting moves. But there's a part of me that's like, if I'm wrong and you can just Earth Power Rotom, then a lot of this is going to sound really silly. But you can't. I've double checked. But I can just... I don't know. We'll get to next turn when we come to it. I figure I have the opportunity to just switch out next turn if I want to, and just avoid that whole problem. But this is going well. I mean, I like being up a Pokemon. I don't have to worry about hazards anymore. My Hatterene's down, so is their hazard setter. Sneasler is looking like it can clean up pretty well, I think. Yeah, Geezing is probably better than Fezandipiti. Maybe. I don't know. We'll see. Fezandipiti might have some hidden power. It's looking tricky. Okay, that's some damage. But here's the Blood Moon. Okay, it survives it handily. So this move, I think, was really clever on my opponent's part. Fezandipiti survives both Blood Moon and Earth Power, so they can afford to stay in on the Earth Power with Fezandipiti. And if they can bait me into Blood Mooning, then they get a guaranteed switch into Rotom that I can't stop. So I could have done a bit more damage with this Earth Power, but Blood Moon seemed better for me. But obviously they didn't have a switch, right? All their other 3 Pokemon would have died to it or been put basically near death. So they kind of had to either stay in or read the Earth Power. Now I'm willing to just click Earth Power. Okay, good play on their part. Yeah, good play. And it's mostly because I basically had to click Earth Power. If I tried to read the double switch to read the Fezandipiti, or if I tried to click Moonblast to try to hit the Rotom on the switch, I got so punished by them staying in. So I felt like I just had to click Earth Power. But that means that they could very freely switch to Rotom. And there wasn't... trying to punish that was so risky. Especially, being ahead, you don't want to do that risky play. I think that these two moves are it shows that my opponent knows what they're doing. I thought it was a really clever way to come back into the game. And it certainly put me on the back foot for at least this part of the experience. Pod is very unhappy that I have to keep the door closed, but it's so windy out there. If I have it open, then the microphone will just have so much background noise. And I don't have a great recording setup as is. If I let the wind come in, I will be committing a war crime against your ears. So, sorry Pod, but we're almost done. And then I can go to editing. They have Tera Ice, right? We're assuming they have Tera Ice. If they're choice specs with Tera Ice, they can one-hit KO, but they probably don't. I think it's fine, because I can Vacuum Wave. Here it is. We expected that, but we're Assault Vest, which they probably didn't expect. Assault Vest Ursaluna! Woo! Woo! I agree. Assault Vest Ursaluna was a really good decision. Obviously, I would have lost it there. Totally been put on the back foot. I would have had to switch to Rotom instead of staying in. But yeah, with the Assault Vest, I was just fine. One-shotted it back. That felt great to see. It shows what prep does. The difference between this week and last week in terms of how confident I felt handling my opponent is night and day. Hopefully the coming battle, next week's battle, isn't really terrible again because I've spent too long on this one. We'll see though. I got to get this video done. Amazing. So that was why I had the Assault Vest, so I could survive, well, and for Walking Wake. But I wanted to be able to flip the tables on the Tera Ice Rotom. Okay, here's Ninetales. Now they can revenge kill me. Do I need to preserve Ursaluna for anything anymore? It loses to Fizz. It loses to... No, I don't need to preserve it. Do I just Vacuum Wave? Or do I think he's going to do something funky and go for Earth Power? Is the chip relevant for Sneasler? Kind of, yeah. It is kind of relevant. I think that this play is really interesting. I think that I made a smart play. Just get the guaranteed chip, let the chips fall where they may, chip, and such. The actual reason to preserve Ursaluna is for points, is to make sure I get more points from my win. But I don't think it's worth making suboptimal plays for points' sake. I think I'd rather just take the steady, guaranteed wins rather than try to risk it all for 6-0s, 5-0s. There we go, Fire Blast. Okay, this looks good. So, now, Sneasler, I think I'm pretty happy to go Lantern, do a little bit more to Ninetales, and then go into Sneasler, because I need just that little bit extra damage to ensure that I kill it with Sneasler. So I'm going to click Flip Turn. If they go into Mints, that's fine. My Sneasler has a Choice Scarf, so it's not a problem. I think we're doing okay. They can't really hurt Lantern. They can Solar Beam, but even Solar Beam, if I show you Solar Beam here, it's not going to do much. 21 to 25%. I'm really specially bulky, which is for Walking Wake. It beats Ninetales too. It's funny how I said at the start of the video that I kind of regret bringing Lantern. Lantern actually is quite critical here because it pivots in Sneasler so well against Ninetales. So I just want to issue a future Henry apology to Lantern. You were actually key in this battle, and I shouldn't have disrespected you so much. I should have dropped Hatterene for Mandibuzz. Okay, they still have some opportunities. I have to be careful not to let Roaring Moon get a setup turn. That's the most dangerous thing for me. Roaring Moon can cause some mayhem, but as long as I don't let it do that, I'll be okay. Here's Fezandipiti, and we're just going to click Dire Claw, because if they're Choice Scarf, the reason I didn't go into Ogerpon is that if they're Choice Scarf, which I don't think I've disconfirmed, because I've only really fought it with my slow Pokemon, I still outspeed it with my own Choice Scarf Sneasler. Yeah. It's looking good for me, right? Because I have Comfey. So, okay, cool. So down goes Fezandipiti. Now the only way I lose this is if I switch Comfey into Roaring Moon and it Iron Heads me, and then I lose Comfey. Which means they probably are going to try to play for that. If I was them, I'd go Roaring Moon, click Iron Head. Okay, no, they're going Ninetales. I don't even know that I actually lose that, because I would still have Sneasler with Close Combat in the back. I think this is actually just one. Sneasler, all I have to do is switch it out, and then switch it back in so I can click Close Combat, instead of being Choice Locked into Diaclaw, and then I win. The question is just, how many Pokemon do I have to lose to get Sneasler in like that? And the answer is 1. I only have to lose 1. I think this is a guaranteed 3-0 win, unless I choke. I haven't quite figured out if there's a path to 4-0, but there probably is a path to 4-0. I just didn't want to risk it. I wanted the safety. I'd rather take the safety. I don't want to risk losing at this stage. I'm just going to go straight back into Lantern. Yeah, this is fine. Nice Psyshock. Good technology there. And now I flip turn back into Sneasler and I can Close Combat. I think that's the game. Unless they've got some crazy thing that I'm not expecting, I think I've won. If I can win +4, that would be great. I would love to win +4. Solar Beam, not going to be enough, I'm afraid. And then Sneasler comes in, clicks Close Combat. Bop. And here's the Roaring Moon. Unfortunately, I win with Sneasler. And there we have it. That was pretty smooth. That was clean. It was unfortunate about the Great Tusk on my opponent's end. I feel like the ursaluna lead, I'm just unfortunate about. The matchup was probably in my favor. Yeah, it was pretty hard for my opponent. They played admirably. I have a lot of respect. I think they for how bad the matchup was, they kind of got me in the team builder. I felt going in, when I saw their team, a lot less confident than I was in the prep phase. But yeah, just Ursaluna is so powerful. Don't have much more to say. I think it was a good game. I think the only real misstep on my opponent's part was that first turn with the Great Tusk. I just got them on the lead. But I feel like I played well. I'm very happy with my plays. I think I foresaw most of the things my opponents wanted to do, and I had good prep to deal with them. So yeah, happy. I'll hand back over to Field Henry unless Past Henry has any closing remarks. But yeah, pretty clean battle. I'm very happy, and a 4-0 win is a 4-0 win. I'll see you in just a moment, but for me it could be 6 days. Who knows? Adieu. Let's wrap this up in a nice bow with some quick stats. These 4 Pokemon didn't come to today's battle. This number is how many times I've brought them. As for the people who did come, here's their KDA. Hatterene is 0-1, no kills, 1 death. Ogerpon, Comfey, and Lantern, nothing, no kills, no deaths. And Sneasler and Ursaluna as usual, are the champions. Sneasler here, taking the gold medal with 3 kills and no deaths. Good job, Sneasler. Outrageous of that Forretress to explode, robbing me of one of my 6 kills of the battle. But so be it. You know, if the Forretress wanted to give its life to ruin my KDA ratio, then who am I to stop it? So we add those stats to the totals, and we get this. These 4 solid Pokemon are all 1 kill, 2 deaths. Rillaboom is 2 kills, 2 deaths. Sneasler, 4 kills, 1 death. And ursaluna, up at the top, 9 kills, 3 deaths. Here's my overall times brought. You can see that Sneasler and ursaluna are the only ones who have come to every battle, but Lantern, Hatterene, and Ogerpon are doing pretty well, too. And that's it. Thank you guys so much for watching. I don't know how long this is going to be, but I think it's going to be a long one. At first I was ashamed of the length of these, but now I think I'm just going to go with it. You know, I like making long videos. It's compelling to me. I know it won't be for everyone. I know it's kind of a niche within a niche, but yeah, I don't know. I hope that you find them entertaining. I hope that with being able to speed up YouTube, they're a bit more bearable. Yeah, it makes me happy, so I'm going to keep doing it. And if you are enjoying them, I really do appreciate it. I think this has been a fun project. It's kind of taken up my life quite a lot, you know, making all these slides, but that's okay. I've needed something to do while I wait for my university degree to start. So, yeah, next week we are facing a team with Iron Valiant, Scizor, and Monkey Dory. Join me then for that battle. Pod is asleep on my lap, so I should probably go give him an excessive amount of pats. See ya!